Hello, hello, everyone. Hope everyone is having a good Sunday so far. I don't know about you, but it is a beautiful day where I live. Hey, Real Scunny, welcome. Hey, Rascal. Hey, Chris. Gonna get started here in about 2.5 minutes. Like to leave some time for folks to get through the pre-roll. Hey, Goofer, welcome. Hey, it's I954, welcome. I hope you're having a good day. Hey, Driftwood. Super nice out indeed. Yeah, there is a fly in this room with me, and I can hear it buzzing around. It might end up driving me insane before the end of the stream, so we'll see. Hey, Atis254, welcome. Hello. Some first timers here today. That's awesome. Good to have you. We're gonna have a lot of fun today. I'm excited about this one. You prefer the cold? Oh man, I'm the opposite. I like hot weather. I can't handle winter. Yeah, humidity is a whole different thing. Yeah. Noon and 95 degrees. Ugh. Yeah, that's rough. Scunny, I'm not too good at my Celsius conversions, but I'm gonna assume that's really hot. I'm a weirdo American and we use Fahrenheit, so unlike the rest of the world. No, that's totally fine. No worries, Scunny. You don't feel obligated to convert. We're the weird ones. America. Hey, JQ Per, welcome. Hey, Jam. Thanks for the quick conversion there, Jim. Ah, there's that fly. Ah, killing me. Okay, on that note, welcome in everybody. Um, how's my audio? Can everybody hear me okay? Sound okay? Kelvin, everybody just go to Kelvin, yeah. All right, let's switch it over to the screen and we'll take a look at what we are building today. Hello, hi everybody. Sound is good. Okay, thanks H Paul. Welcome in, by the way. Awesome. Glad everybody can hear me okay. Welcome, Dees. All right, so what we are building today, this may not look like much, but what we're building today is actually really, really cool. So hey, Hedrisha, welcome. So before we get started today, I did want to thank Micah Dev. They subscribe with Prime in between streams, so I always like to see if I can catch those folks and give them a thank you. So thank you, Micah Dev, for the Prime subscription, spending that Bezos bucks. Nice. All right. Hello again. So what are we making today? Well, today we are going to be building an app that will allow us to pretty much instantaneously search a massive MongoDB database from inside of our app, which I have open right here. So, and this is a movie search app. I probably could have done some more formatting here, but I didn't. So let's say I want to look for the best movie of all time, which is Shaun of the Dead. So I'm gonna go ahead and start typing, and as soon as I start typing, you'll notice it starts to give me some results in a drop down. So I type Shaun of the, and then as I keep typing, it's going to keep giving me results. And sometimes it takes a minute. But in this case, what it's done is it's searched a MongoDB database, and there we go. Now it refreshed there. And so now we can see I typed Shaun of the Dead, and it's giving me updated results as I go. So in this case, all right, Shaun of the Dead is what I was looking for, but I didn't have to type the whole thing. It was already giving me results as I was typing. And we call that autocomplete. And you might recognize that from things like Google, or a lot of websites do this. They'll help you try to figure out what you're typing as you go. So if I choose Shaun of the Dead, I can see what I get back is I get back the main cast as well as the poster. And we can do this with a lot of other movie titles as well, pretty much anything we can think of. So somebody want to give me a movie title? We can exercise this a little bit. What's a good movie? The B movie? Okay, sure. All right. Let's type B and should search. Being a little slow. Okay, there we go. So now, there we go. So we can see I type B, and it's giving me a bunch of choices. And it's giving me not only choices that have just the word B, but also words that contain the letters B, E, E. And if it doesn't find enough matches, it'll even do sort of what we call like a fuzzy search. So it'll look for words that are similar. So maybe like BEA. In this case, there's a lot of words that do have BEE in them. But in this case, we have B movie here. So we can click that and we get the poster. But let's say that I'm trying to search for a movie and maybe I misspell it. So you know me, I make a lot of spelling errors. Conan the Barbarian, Wrath of Khan. Yeah. Well, let's do Wrath of Khan. That's an easy one to misspell, right? You might not know how to spell Khan. Wrath of. Oh, and look, this is a pretty short list, but Wrath of. Let's say I misspell Khan like that. And so we can see it doesn't exclude Wrath of Khan. So it's looking for a lot of things that are very similar to that, because it couldn't find, there weren't that many matches. So it kind of went more fuzzy, and it's looking for things that are similar, maybe not exact matches. So in this case, yes, I was able to find Wrath of Khan. And it apparently doesn't have a poster for that. That's a shame, because the Star Trek posters are pretty good generally. Oh, rascal, already trying to figure out what I'm doing here. Nice. You'll just have to wait and see for a sec. Yeah, so essentially what this is doing is it's searching a massive MongoDB movie database, and it does it extremely quickly. And so that does require a little bit of setup on the Mongo side, but it's actually a built-in feature that Mongo database has, which allows you to quickly search huge databases and bring back results in real time. Because if you think about it, I mean, as we type, it's hitting it multiple times, right? So let's figure out how we can do that. So in this case, there's a little bit of setup required. So as always, you're welcome to follow along. And I do want to give folks a little, just a couple minutes to get in here, because the first couple steps that we do are going to be super important for getting this to work. What is the feature called? Well, we'll get there in just a second. Yes. It's some native search features to MongoDB Atlas, which is what we're using in the class here. Hey, Anna, welcome. And Dean, welcome. And Kojo. And Lutron, welcome. Drop-down options populating. Yeah, exactly. So this is kind of, this is an interesting little setup. Okay, so let's just go ahead and go and get started. And if folks get lost, as they come in, we can, set them straight as we go. Full text, yeah. We'll get into some various options that we have in order to set this up. But the first thing that we need to do, or the first thing that you need to do, I've already done it, is go to MongoDB and log in, and go to your cluster. So that's sort of like your home page for your whole cluster. And normally we would go to browse collections, but in this case, I want you to log into Mongo and click the 3 dots next to the cluster. And what we're going to do is you're going to load sample data sets. So MongoDB actually has a bunch of sample data sets that already contain a ton of data. So you can mess around, you can test your apps without having to flesh out an entire API yourself. So this is really nice. So go ahead and click load sample dataset, and this will take several minutes to do. So I'm going to need your help actually to tell me when the dataset is done loading for you guys. So that way we can pivot back and we can do some more work. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have you load these sample datasets, and we're going to step away from that and do other things until it's done loading. And then once it's done, we're going to come back and we're going to configure it for searching. So you're going to want to load the sample dataset, and then let me know when it's done. Okay. Everybody got that? Because yeah, I've already done it. I already have the data sets, and I don't really want to get rid of them, so I'm going to rely on you all. Mongo SREs are going, CPU spiked everywhere at the same time. Yeah. At least 70 or so of them. Yes. Yeah, it's really nice, Real Scunny. Yeah, so it's actually they're robust data sets, and while they're loading, we'll just take a quick look at them. So I'm going to go ahead and since I've already loaded the data sets, I'm going to go to Browse Collections, and we'll see what sort of things are going to get loaded for you. So everything except the Star Trek API, these are all sample data sets. And so today we're going to be working with the sample mflix data set, which is right here. And we can see that it even has several like collections. Remember so this is our database right here. And then what's the smaller groupings inside of that are called our collections, right? And so we're going to be working with the movies collection today. And what's in there is essentially just a bunch of movie data. We've got some nested objects here. And yeah, just tons and tons of movies. And so we can see that the total number of documents is actually almost, it's 23,530. So that's quite a few, right? That's a lot of searching to do. And especially to do it in real time. And so I think it's really cool that Mongo can help us facilitate this. So yeah, that's what we're going to be working with today. But while we're waiting on Mongo needs the dark mode. Yeah, I know. I keep forgetting to try to load that extension that like that dark reader or whatever it is extension that kind of just turns websites dark. Someone scraped IMDb. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they probably did. Yeah, I'm sure they have some sort of agreement with them. But where do we go in Mongo? Yeah, let me go back to the beginning here. So I'm back on the home page. I'm back on my database deployments page right here. So this is like my home page. So in order to get there, I signed into Mongo and I just clicked database, okay? And in order to do it, you just say load sample dataset. And you should get a little banner at the top of your screen that's like loading, it'll say like loading datasets or something like that, and it'll have you wait. And it takes, maybe 5 minutes to finish. So just say load sample dataset, and you'll see a little banner up here that'll tell you the progress. And then if you want to check and see, when it's ready, you can just say browse collections, and then once they're loaded, you should see them all listed down the side. Yeah, it's giving you the spinning wheel. Yeah, it's a lot of data. Like somebody said, it's a lot of data, so it takes a hot minute to load in. So Amma and Dees, have you found it? Were you able to click the load sample dataset button? Yeah, Goofer, you can put it in. You could start a new project if you really wanted, but you can do it in your existing deployment. So just whatever your default cluster is, you don't have to create a new cluster for this. I just put it in my existing one, so it's sitting in there along with my Star Trek API. Yeah, it's not going to hurt anything, because each time you connect to this specific collection within the database, right? So it doesn't matter. Using the outline one, yeah, it's not going to hurt anything. This is still small, but even though it's got that many records, it's still small potatoes for Mongo. So this is no problem for that. All right, so I'm going to assume everybody's data sets are still loading, and just let me know when they're done. Sample data still loading. Yeah, that's totally fine. Dees, did you already have a Mongo account, or are you just starting now? Because you don't have to re-sign up if you already have a Mongo cluster created. You're not creating a new cluster. You can just add it to your existing cluster. Hey, Wolf, welcome. Good to have you here. So while we were waiting for the sample data set to load, let's go ahead and move over to VS Code, and we'll start setting up our server.js file, okay? Because we know that that's what we're going to need that in order to talk to Mongo, right? In order for our app to talk to Mongo, we're going to need a server.js file. We're going to need to set up our port and, set up our gets and our express and all that stuff, okay? Welcome, Fosa. Yeah, I just started, so you didn't miss anything at all. The only thing we did was we went to our Mongo cluster and we said load sample data set. That's all we did, and we're waiting on folks' sample data sets to load. Okay? So feel free to do that. But yeah, let's head on over to VS Code, and it's opened up here. Yeah, Deez, yeah, if you got your existing cluster, just use that. Okay, so let's head over to VS Code and let's start setting up our server architecture while we wait for the datasets to load in. So I have my folder open here already where I'm going to be doing this project. So I'm going to go ahead and create my server.js file. All right. Just like we've done a bunch of times before now, but this is really good practice because we're sort of seeing how these patterns repeat, and how we can, pretty much work off of a template to set up these server files over and over again, right? So if I am wanting to use Node to essentially to connect to install a bunch of dependencies and to go ahead and connect to a database, what's the first thing I need to do? I'm going to open my terminal, and what do I need to type? Where do I start? Yeah, npm init. And I'm sure you're like, why is she asking this again? But it's good. We got to repeat this stuff. We got to get it so it's just like, muscle memory, right? Otherwise, you can get yourself into like an interview or something like that, and you're like, wait, why isn't anything working? Well, because you forgot to, initialize your package manager, right? Something weird like that where your brain just, sparks out for a minute. Okay, so I'm switched over to git bash, and we're gonna go ahead and do npm init and initialize our stuff. And remember, when we get this thing that pops up asking us for input, we can just hit enter and go ahead and speed through it. All right, until we get our prompt back. So I've got my prompt is backed. My package manager my package.json file is created here. So now I can start installing some dependencies. Okay, and what's the most important one that I need? The important one could be a little subjective, but they're all important in their own way. But what do I need to, yeah, express, right? So npm install express. Okay, I've installed Express. What's another one that I need? Now, just for the folks that might be new here, we're not going to be using Mongoose. We're going to be using a slightly different dependency. So what is that? For if I want to talk to MongoDB, what do I need to install? I want to talk to MongoDB. What do I need to install? Yeah, MongoDB. That's right. Trick question. npm install MongoDB. Indeed. I can't spell it. This is why I need a fuzzy search. This is why I need autocomplete search, because I can't spell. Yeah, we need the MongoDB driver, right? Yeah. Okay, so we got that installed. Now we're going to install a couple of other things. And somebody mentioned before, we're also going to go ahead and install npm install .env. Now, what does that do? If I install .env, what does that do? And the last thing, I'm going to leave that question hanging out there, but yeah, it keeps secrets from, it does not push up to GitHub. Yeah. Be able to hide files and enforce. Yeah, those are great answers. So yeah, .env allows us to create an environment, a separate environment location where we can basically set things to various variables and then use them in our code, but still hide them from GitHub or, kind of just obscure them a little bit. In that case, it's useful for us here because we're going to obscure our connection string to MongoDB so that nobody can just like go up to GitHub and get all of our connection information for our database. Yeah. So that's what we're going to do. In just a minute. But the last dependency I want to go ahead and install is I want to go ahead and install cores. And this is important. You have to have this one. And essentially what it does is it bypasses the cores error that we sometimes get in our browser, where our browser doesn't want our app talking to our server and vice versa. So go ahead and install cores as well. And so now that we're done, let's just take a look at everything we've installed. And we can see that we have cores, we have .env, we have Express, and we have MongoDB, okay? So make sure you have all 4 of these things, and then you should be good to go. You have all 4. All right, how's our sample database going? Anybody have theirs loaded yet? Yeah, Luis, we'll get there. If you're having trouble making your connection work, okay, so if people are starting to get there, good. People are starting to get their data loaded. We'll give folks a little bit more time. We'll start setting up our, we'll start declaring some variables in our server.js file. Yeah, okay, great. Anybody still it sounds like a lot of folks are done. Anybody still working on theirs? Still waiting? Okay, that's totally fine. I'm not going to rush it. But it sounds like folks are starting to get done, which is good. That's no worries at all, no caffeine. Fine. No worries at all. Smilegirl, please show us how to do the data set again. So in order to do that, white screen warning here. We went to our main, like our homepage essentially. So our main database homepage. So if you just logged in, you would go to database. And so where you can see your cluster and all these little line thingies. And so blinded by the light, I know. You click on the 3 dots and you say load sample data set. Okay. That's all you need to do. That'll take a few minutes. Okay, loaded now. Good. It sounds like a lot of folks are done. Do you have your cluster, Smilegirl? Are you on this specifically on this page? Got to click database. And where it says, make sure you're on the page, it says database deployments and say load sample data set. 120 of many. Yeah, there's, like I said, there's almost 24,000 lines in here. Smilegirl, have you gone through my previous streams where we created a cluster? Or did you just sign up for Mongo now? Oh, thanks, Anna. You had Mongo. Have you worked with it? Do you have a database? Did you do any of the database exercises previously? Did you do any of them, Smilegirl? Yes. Okay. So go to your database, whatever that is. And you should see so just click on the database on the left bar. Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're going to have to reset everything up. I would suggest if you can't log into your old one, reset the password or something, because going through the whole cluster creation again is, it might be more trouble than it's worth. I would suggest just reset your password. Because creating the cluster takes several minutes as well. Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to assume that most folks have theirs loaded in. So let's go ahead and start working with this sample data set, okay? So data set just completed. Okay, good deal. Hey, Hussein, welcome. So what do we need to do in order to facilitate search? Oh, that's awesome. First time live. That's rad. Oh, good. No caffeine. That's awesome. Because I know you joined a little later, so I'm glad yours finished as well. Okay, so what do we need to do to facilitate search? So by default, technically you could search all of the data in this movie database. So let's go ahead and go to the movie database and let's see what's in there again. So go ahead and go to Browse Collections and choose the sample mflix database, okay? And then choose movies. So we're gonna go back there. So I'm in sample mflix and movies. And we can see, like, technically I could search all of this data all the time. But that is really resource intensive. And for the purposes of our specific app, we are just looking for the title, right? We want to search on the movie title, and that's all we care about. I don't care about, you know, what languages it was released in, what year it was released, you know, the IMDb score. Like, I don't care about any of that. What I care about is I want to search specifically on the title, and I want that search to be fast and efficient. So if I was looking for a specific word, if I had a book, let's forget about databases for a second. If I had a book with all this movie information in it, what would be a way that I could quickly figure out what page a specific movie title might be on? What's a feature in a book that I could use to quickly figure out what page something is on? Yeah, table of contents, index, right? Yeah, exactly. Table of contents or index. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to build an index on this collection. Just like in a book, what that index is going to do is it's going to help us quickly, well, it's going to help Mongo quickly pinpoint the location of a specific essentially database key, right? And so indexes are really cool because they help streamline search. They basically what it does is the database goes through and it marks the location of, for example, all the information that's associated with each movie title. So if I make an index on title, what that's going to do is it's going to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to go through every single title in the database, and I'm going to figure out where it's located, figure out where all the information associated with it is located, figure out the page number, so to speak, and have that ready so that when I get a search request, I can quickly return that data because I know exactly where it is. I don't have to go through and look each time. I can just be like, yep, that's on page 92. Boom, here you go. So you might ask, okay, well, why don't I just index every single field, right? Why don't I just go through and put an index on title and plot and languages, directors, writers, awards, blah, 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 blah. Well, marking the location based on every single object key has a lot of drawbacks. It makes things slower, more resource intensive. And so you want to be strategic about which fields you decide to index. Because if I was in a book, right, I don't index every single word in that book. I only put indexes on things that I feel people are going to want to search for, right? A book index doesn't index the word the, right? It only indexes important things. And in this case, we get to decide what's important. And what we've decided is important is title, okay? Because that's what we want to search for. That's a bit of a long-winded explanation, but I want to be clear about what in these next steps, what we're doing and why we're doing it. Exactly, JW01. If you want to start getting technical about this, inserts and updates become much more costly resource-wise the more fields that you index. So you want to be strategic, but we haven't even talked about how databases work or anything like that. So I'm staying on the high level right now, but just to be aware of what an index is. That's what it's doing. It's making it easier for us to search on the specific field that we've indexed. Okay? Yeah, but good explanation there, JW. Is default create cluster fine? Yeah, code for dopamine. You can just do like the default. Select the free tier if you're creating a new cluster. Select the free one, and you can name it whatever, whatever you would like. Yeah, just keep everything default. create the default cluster, free cluster, and name it something that makes sense to you. No worries at all. Okay, so how do we create an index? Well, they make it pretty easy. In our sample mflix.movies, so I'm looking at the documents in the database right now, I can just go to search indexes. Okay, so click on search indexes. And I can see that I already have an index here, but you're going to need to create one. Okay, so click on create index. And we're going to use the JSON editor to do this. Okay, so instead of visual editor, go ahead and click JSON editor. And go ahead and click next. Oh, thanks, EO. Thank you for helping them with the extra dependencies there. Hey, Nay. All right, so we're in the JSON editor, okay? And I'm going to give you exactly what to put in here. So let me get it for you. I'm going to put it in chat, and you can just drop it in. Don't got to worry. Grab it. Two seconds. Okay, so in this, just go ahead and delete everything that's in here. All right, make it clear the box and put this in. I put that whole string in there for you. And I'll even paste it in here too, so you can look at it, make sure that yours matches yours. Well, and also too, I paste it in chat and it destroys the formatting. But here, I'm going to paste it in with proper formatting so it's a little easier to read. So you can either type it by looking at my screen or grab it from chat. And you can leave the default index name here. It's set as default by default. You can change it to be something that you'll remember if you would like. You can leave it as default. Mine just says duplicate because I already have the index on here. And also too, on the left, you're going to want to make sure that you have the right database selected. So you're going to want to make sure that your sample mflix and movies is selected. Okay. So sample mflix and movies. And then just go ahead and drop this JSON in here. We'll take a look at it. We don't need visual. We live in the terminal. Yeah. Hey, Fat Cat. So what we did is we imported some sample data sets. So here, let's back up and we'll get back to where we are while folks are getting this JSON in there. Oh, sorry, it's a little hard to read. Yeah, gosh, I hate this Mongo interface. It's so like, I shouldn't say I hate it, but it's so like not visually friendly. Is that a little easier to see? I highlighted the text. And I pasted it in chat as well. So you can grab it from chat. Can you see it a little better? I can zoom in more too if I need to. Doesn't make it much bigger, but. So while y'all are getting that in there, how we got to where we are, Fat Cat, is I clicked on database and you go to your cluster homepage. And I'm just gonna put a new tab here. I'm gonna click away from this for just a second. I clicked on it, so I went to my cluster homepage, Fat Cat, and I clicked on the 3 dots and I said load sample data set. Okay, we're loading in some sample data to work with today. And so that's going to take several minutes. So for anybody who just joined, go ahead and get that far, get that loaded, and then let me know when it's done. Okay, so how are we doing? Everybody got this in there? And while we're doing that, let's just take a look at what it's doing. So basically, oh, and I just realized too, sorry, this is, I need to make one change. Okay, so don't click next yet. I apologize. I have a field name wrong here. So we're looking at, we're essentially what we're doing is we're indexing this data to be ready to be searchable, okay? And here we set up the actual fields that we want to search. And the specific field that we're going to want to search on is the field called title. And so that's what I just changed. So if you have it in there as name, please change it to title. And I'll repaste it in chat. That's the only thing I changed though. There we go. So just change from name to title right here. And then inside of title, we're sort of giving some parameters of how we're going to be doing these searches. You don't need to worry too much about this, but just notice that our search type is set to autocomplete, okay? So that's the kind of search we're going to want to do, right? We're going to be expecting, you know, kind of rapid fire results to be returned to us as we type. Blip, my VODs are available on Twitch for 60 days, so 2 months. And then after Twitch, usually within a couple weeks, I move them to YouTube as well. So before they expire on Twitch, you know, within 2 weeks of air date, I usually move them to YouTube. And you can do !YouTube if you want my channel, a YouTube channel. Okay, so once you're done with that, once you've got this pasted in and you make sure that the field that you're going to be searching on is title, click next. And I'm actually just going to create a new, let's see, I'm going to go to the next screen here. I'm going to go ahead and click next. And basically just says review it, and then you go ahead and click create search index, okay? You can make sure that looks right, and then go ahead and create your search index. And that takes like, I don't know, a minute to finish. But you do need this in order for your searches to end up working. So any questions about this? Or because after we create this search index, we're kind of done in working in Mongo, and then we're going to go back to our VS Code and start actually doing some coding. So any last questions here? Can I explain the JSON? Well, really the only thing that you need to pay attention to is the fields that we're going to be searching on. So we basically tell Mongo which field or fields we're going to be searching on. In this case, we're going to search on title, right? Because we care about the title of our movies. And then the only other field that you really should, you know, take a look at here, just leave this, don't worry. Just look at the type of search that we're going to be doing. The type of search that we're going to be doing is autocomplete, because we want it to autocomplete our search as we're typing, right? So we're telling Mongo, hey, Mongo, expect that the types of searches we're going to be doing on these movie titles, they're going to be autocomplete. So you better get them back to us quick. You can put whatever index name you want, whatever you remember. Mine's just called default. Yeah, leave it. You can leave it as default or call it whatever. Doesn't matter. Is this from homework or push work? This is push work. We're on break, man. I'm having fun. Actually, I asked Twitter what I should talk about today, and Twitter said that they would like me to talk about like doing more full stack apps, doing more Mongo, and somebody mentioned, you know, this search functionality, which I thought was really cool. So, and you're going to see this a lot. Like a lot of apps have autocomplete searches, right? Or any type of search. With an app, especially that one that hits a large database, if I type something, if I'm searching for something, I don't want it to bring back every single possible like thing in the database, right? We don't want that. And the other thing too is that I also don't want to have to type the exact name of something every single time if I'm searching for it. I might not remember a full movie title, like Once Upon a Time in the West. I don't want to type that whole thing out if I want to search for that movie. I want to type West and then choose it from a list of results, right? So this is a very common thing, and I think it's really cool to learn how to do. It's fun day. We're having fun. We created the database we were using, Mongo. This is a default database from MongoDB. You downloaded the sample data. Awesome. Okay, let's just backtrack real quick and get everybody back on the same page. So we loaded our sample data set, right? Then after that's done, you can go to Browse Collections. And we are in the sample mflix database, sample mflix database, okay? and we are in the movies collection. So once you're there, then go to search indexes. So we're in sample mflix, movies, search indexes, and then create index. Okay. Yeah, Driftwood, it takes a minute. Oh, thank you, Jack Tree. Much appreciated. It takes a minute to load in the index. You should get a ping when it's done. It acts like it's not started, but then it within 2 or 3 minutes it'll be done. Thanks, Inadequate. And so after you've gotten to the index creation, then you'll go to the JSON editor and click next. And from there, you'll just paste in that JSON that I gave you. Okay? Did we test the index? No, we're not gonna test it. We're just because it doesn't allow you to test autocomplete queries. So I tried that. It's like, nope, you can't test autocomplete queries. So I'm like, all right, whatever. We're gonna do it live. It'll work. It's all good. The JSON, if you use the JSON that I gave you, it'll work. Yeah, code for dopamine. People have told me about Dark Reader before, and I keep forgetting about it. I gotta actually install it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to assume that folks have they have the sample data set. They have the index in place. And also too, the last thing too, if you went into this index, from the movies database, from the movies collection, you should be fine, but just double check that you chose sample mflix and movies in the list of options on the left here. But you should be okay. So just go ahead and create the index. It'll take 1 or 2 minutes to finish up. And do most folks have the index done? If you want to check, you can go back to your back to the movies collection, and you should be able to see the index on movies. So go to sample mflix and movies, and you should see it as active under your list of indexes. Okay. So, and if it says not started, just give it another minute, and it'll get there. Because mine said not started until it actually finished. So, all right. So I'm seeing a few yeses there. All right, good deal. I don't want to get too far ahead, but I also want to, also want to keep moving along a little bit. All right, I got the hydrate, got the NASA mug today. Okay. So yeah, we can see that it's indexed all the records. Excuse me, I gotta wipe my nose. Hang on. Turn off my camera for just 1 sec. Got an itchy nose today. Okay, all better. Okay, so it looks like folks are getting done with their indexes there. So now we're pretty much done in Mongo. Mongo is ready to accept our autocomplete queries. And Mongo is just ready and waiting. It's listening. We could index other fields if we wanted. If you were wanting to do your own database or whatever, you could, index whatever field you felt like would be good for people to search on. Again, I don't index every field because that's going to become really resource intensive. Pick 1 or 2 fields that are going to be, highly searched by people you expect. That'll make them return results much faster if you index them. So, but yeah, we're just going to stick with title for now. And now let's head back to VS Code and keep setting up our server.js file, okay? Any questions? Feel free to ask at any time. All right, and again, for those of you who may have just joined, we've gone ahead and installed we've installed our dependencies for now. We've got cores, .env, express, and MongoDB, okay? So nothing different than any of the projects we've done so far. These should all be familiar. But yeah, if you don't have these installed yet, go ahead and install cores, .env, express, and MongoDB, okay? And if you are lost if or if you just joined and you're like, oh crap, I'm way behind, you can restart this VOD, this stream that we are on right now. You can restart it from the beginning by going to my Twitch channel and just clicking on it. You should see it on the list of available videos. So if you need to start over and be a few minutes behind, that's totally fine. You can always catch up during the break, or one of the breaks. So feel free, go to my Twitch channel, rewind, start over if you need a little help. Okay, so let's head to our server.js file and keep setting things up. All right, so what do I need to do in order to make it so I can use things like Express and MongoDB and cores and .env? What keyword do I need to use? Yeah, we need to require them, right? So we're going to declare some variables. We're going to say const express require express, right? So we're saying, hey, we're going to be using Express and the associated methods within this project. So I'm also going to set app equal to Express. So that way we can just say app.whatever and use Express methods. I also need to use cores. So we're going to say const cores, require cores. And somebody said, what's the difference between Mongoose and MongoDB? I don't know for sure. We've only used MongoDB so far, so that's what I'm sticking with. So we've got cores, and also we need MongoDB, right? So const, now I'm going to do a little something here. Just bear with me. Mongo client. This may look a little bit different than what we've seen before when we're talking about Mongo requiring MongoDB, but don't panic, it's all good. Require MongoDB. Okay, so what just happened here? What the frick, right? What did I even do? Why is cores and coats and express isn't? Oh, no, I didn't forget. So this is just the syntax with, oh, sorry. Oh, you're talking about this. I did forget. You're right. Yeah, so we're destructuring, right? And don't worry about too much about this, but basically what we're doing is we're going into this MongoDB package dependency here, and we're pulling out Mongo client and object ID. When normally we would just say Mongo client, right? But here we do need object ID. So we basically just need both of these associated, objects that are associated with MongoDB. So we're pulling them both out at once. Little destructuring there, but don't panic, it's all good. Yeah, exactly, Clouds, that's right. We're setting up the object ID because later on we're going to need to grab stuff out of the database by its object ID. Yep. Okay, so we've got all those things. The last thing I need is that we also need to require .env as well, because we're going to need to connect to our database. So .env .config. What this is going to do is it's going to allow us to obscure our database connection credentials within a .env file, so we don't have to show them to the world. Mongoose is an animal. Yes, you're right. Oh, thanks for that explanation there, Rascal, of the difference between MongoDB and Mongoose. Yes. Okay, so we've got our basic requirements, right? We've got it. This should help us, pull in everything that we're going to need in order to make this work properly. So we're going to go ahead and start declaring some variables that are going to help us. Now we're going to declare some variables that are going to help us basically shorten our connections to the database, make it a little bit easier to manipulate this stuff. So I'm going to just declare the variables db DB connection string. And I'm going to set this one equal to our environment variable, which we're going to create in just a second. So that's going to be process.env.db string is what I'm going to call it. Okay, we're going to set that up in just a second, but just leave it for now. I'm going to declare my DB name, which in this case it's called sample mflix. Oops. Underscore sample mflix, and the last thing I'm going to declare is just to go ahead and declare a variable for our collection. So what are we doing here? So essentially what we're doing is we're kind of setting up our variables in sort of descending order. In this case, we're basically saying, all right, let's find our database, let's find our connection string to our database, let's find our specific database name, and then the collection within the database. And we'll declare that connection variable a little bit later, but we're just setting it up for now. Okay, so how do we set up our .env file in order to hide our database string? Well, it's actually really easy. All we need to do is go ahead and create a new file. And we just call it .env. Boop. There we go. So now we have a .env file, and you can see it has like a little gear icon there. And inside that file is where we put our database connection string. Now, where do we get our database connection string? Well, if you're using an existing cluster and you've connected to it before, you could always grab this connection string from another project. But I'll go ahead and show you how to find it again. So we're just going to pop back to Mongo really quickly. And I'm going to go back to my database cluster. And I'm going to go ahead and say connect. So I'm on my database cluster, database deployments. I'm going to say connect. I'm going to connect my application. Okay. Now, as soon as I do that, I can see that it gives me this connection string right here. So you're going to want to copy this, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to take it back to VS Code. Okay. So does everybody see how I got here? If you've ever done a project where you've connected to Mongo before, you should have had to do this. You should have had to go ahead and say connect my application, and then copy this connection string. So I'm going to assume that everybody's kind of with me so far. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go back to VS Code. I can't see where my icon is. There we go. And inside of my .env file, I'm just going to take my DB string variable, and I'm going to set it equal to this connection string, okay? So inside of my .env file, I'm saying db string equals. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. Thank you for you forgot the comments again. Indeed, yeah. We'll put some comments inside of our server.js file and inside of our js.main file. Oh. Our main.js file, yeah. Okay, so my connection string is in here. Now, what's the one thing I need to do before I can make this work? What's probably the most common thing you forget when you're putting a connection string inside of your .env file? I need to save it. That's the first thing. But what else do I need to do in order to make this connection string work? Yes, save, exactly. Yep. What's the other thing? Cry. Yes, the password. Exactly. Yes. I think that's the most common thing that people mess up is they forget that you need to replace the password right here. You need to replace this with your actual database password. All the best passwords are password. Password 123, indeed. Yes. So yeah, replace this with your actual password. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this off my screen for just a second. Y'all don't get to see it. And I'm going to replace it with my password. and I'm going to save it. Okay, so I've done that. Password 1, 2, 3, yeah. And Silva, within that env file, there was no other code. It was just literally that. That's all. The only thing we put inside our .env file. Driftwood, if we have Google connected as our email password, no. When you created the database, you should have had to set up a username and password within the database itself. So if you don't remember what that is, you'll just need to reset the password for the database in order to be able to connect. Yeah, unfortunately, it is a local password that is local to the database. So I would highly suggest whenever you set up a new, whenever you set up a new, sorry, I shouldn't say like a new cluster. Yeah, whenever you set up like a new cluster, you'll need to, copy that password and like put it in Notepad or something like that. So how do we reset it if we need to? You go back to your database deployments. You'll just say, I believe it's database access. So under security, you click database access and just say edit. And you can just say edit password and reset it from there and copy the password and put it in Notepad so you have it. Yeah, just look at Heroku or look at one of your previous projects and grab it. Yep. Yeah, I've had to reset it more than once. Just because I lose it or what have you. But before I had a lot of projects that used it and I could just copy the string. Yeah, that's not the first time I've had to reset it. So, okay. So back to this. Now our code is able to access this DB string, read it from our environment file, and use it to connect to Mongo. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and keep going. So we've declared all of our variables. Now we can actually start connecting to our database. So what do I need to say if I want to connect using Mongo client? And don't think too hard about this. Remember, Express tends to make things very easy to read and easy to follow. So if I want to connect using Mongo client, what would I say? Rascal 2. Never save passwords. Instead, search through dozens of programs, dozens of previous apps for the password you're looking for. Yes, exactly. What do I say if I want to connect to Mongo? Oh, I didn't know Heroku was having problems with GitHub integration. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't think about it too hard. Exactly. It's just Mongo client.connect. We're using Mongo client to connect to a database. Go us. All right. So Mongo client dot connect. And in order to connect to the correct database, I just want to use my database connection string. This is going to pass that whole long string. It's going to pass it to Mongo, and Mongo's going to say, oh, hey, I recognize this. You want to connect to the movies database, or you want to connect to this, I guess it's more like you're connecting to the particular cluster, but we want to connect to this cluster and this user and this password, and those credentials look good, so I'm going to let you connect. All right. Yeah, so we're going to connect to, whoops, sorry. My camera fell off of my monitor. It's been doing that all day. Sorry about that. Let me check the angle. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. All right, that's good enough. It's a little high, but I'll fix it during the break. Stupid thing. Although I can't really complain since most of my setup is made of painter's tape, so we'll see if it holds out. There we go. All right, stay up there. Stay. Okay. Yeah, better than me falling, indeed. It's just the camera. It's no big deal. Okay, so Mongo client.connect. All right, so we're passing our connection string. And after that, we're going to say, after we connect, say then client. Don't worry too much about the specifics of this. It's more of just a template. We're going to be essentially using the same template every single time we connect to Mongo for any reason. So don't worry too much about the specifics of like what we're passing in here, but just know that you can use this and reuse it to connect over and over and over again. Painter's tape is duct tape's underrated cousin, indeed. All right, so client. All right, and I usually like to have a console log here, just to say like, hey, you're connected to the database. Just as a little visual indicator that the connection was successful. And so once we're connected, we can basically set our DB variable to the DB name. So client, in this case, it'll be set to that Netflix, movies, Netflix, or whatever. I think DB DB name, and after that, we're going to also grab the specific name of the collection. We're going to set the name of the collection that we're trying to connect to. So collection is going to be equal to db.collection, and we're connecting to movies, right? So what this is going to do is we're connecting. First, we're saying, all right, go to sample Netflix, and then look inside of sample Netflix, and we're going to be connecting to the movies collection. So this lets us drill down real quick to exactly the data that we want. All right, so assuming we are able to establish our connection, that allows our server to connect to the database. But what do I need if I want my server, if I want apps to be able to connect to my server? What do I need to say if I want apps to be able to connect to my server? I need to set up a port, right? I need to set up like port 8000 or 3000 or whatever. So how do I do that? Got to allow the port, exactly. How do I set that up? So you can think about it. So remember that our server is like the UPS man, right? He goes to the truck and he gets the packages, and then he comes back and he delivers packages to the customer. So we've set up the part where the UPS man has the keys to the truck. He can go and he can get into the truck and he can get the packages. But yeah, we also need for him to be listening for customers that want their packages delivered. Yeah, so we need app.listen. Exactly. Yep. And we're going to set up we also need to sort of just set up a port number. So I'm going to declare one more variable up here, and we're just going to say, I'm going to set a port value const port. I'm already running on 3000, so I'll just set it to 8000. I've used that port before. Any port in a storm, right? Okay, so we set up our port, and then we can just do an app.listen. App.listen, and I can be listening on so in Leon's example, he essentially put his port value inside of his environment variable. So this is going to be a little bit unnecessary, but I'm just going to follow that syntax. So you can put your port value inside of your env file, but in this case, it's going to default to the port variable that we have. So it's going to say, all right, where's a port? Here's a port. It's the one that we declared up here. Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're going to be listening on that port 8000, and when we're listening on that port 8000, what are we going to be doing? Well, really all we want to do is just console log that our server is running. Server is running. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to tell us when we're connected to our MongoDB, and it's also going to tell us when we're connected to our server. All right. So, and I think, am I missing a, just double check. Listen. Oh, sorry, I have a parenthesis in the wrong place. So I shouldn't have parenthesis after the port. I should have a parenthesis here at the very end. Okay, so make sure that your whole console log or whatever statement is enclosed inside of the listen method. Allos tell us, yes, we have, unfortunately. What I might suggest is closing this live stream, going to my videos, and clicking on the VOD of this exact stream that we're recording right now, because we've done a whole lot of things and I don't want you to miss out. So click on the actual video on my Twitch page of this VOD that's being recorded right now. Go there, rewind it, start at the beginning, and you can probably fast forward through some bits, and I'm sure you'll be able to catch up, okay? Because yeah, we've done quite a few things. We've done some database work, like MongoDB side work. We've installed a bunch of dependencies. We've done quite a bit of setup. So thank you for the hydrate. Yeah, and Rascal just posted a link right there to the VOD. So just click that link and start there, and I'm sure you'll be able to catch up. Okay. So we've got our client and we've got our listen. So let's go ahead and see if we can test this out and just make sure that we're able to open a port and also connect to our database. Before we get too deep into this, let's make sure that that part is working. So I'm going to save this. And what do I say if I want to use Node to initialize my server? What do I do? What do I type inside the terminal? Yeah, Node server.js, exactly. We don't have NodeMon installed. We're not going to use it this time. You can if you want. There's nothing stopping you. I'm just keeping it simple this time around. So Node server.js. Server is running. That's good. We were able to open a port. See down there in the console. Server is running, and it's working on connecting to the database. It's taken a hot minute. There we go. All right, server is running and connected to database. Yeah, Driftwood. Hey, password from 821 project saves the day. Nice. Way to find that password, Driftwood. You got it. All right. So you should, if you set everything up properly, you should see both of these messages, and that connected to database might take a few seconds to come up. But yeah, so you should be good to go here if you have both server is running and connected to database. Okay, so a couple things to check. First, make sure if you got an error, first, I'm not going to show you my env file, but make sure that you saved it, right? And that you have db string as the variable in your env file. So it needs to be db string and then the whole connection string, and also make sure that you replace the password in between the carets. Make sure you replace the password in between the carets with your actual database password. It's not your MongoDB.com password. It's the password for your database. So feel free to reset it if you don't know what that is. But I think this is a good time for a break, so we can let folks do some troubleshooting during the break, and give folks 5 minutes to troubleshoot a little bit if they need to. And so once we have our server and we have our connection to the database, now we can actually start adding some code that's going to allow our server to listen for customer requests and pass those requests on through to the database. Hey, no problem, no caffeine. Good to see you. Get that painter's tape. Yeah. Not the first time I've had to reset. It's my ring light that's the problem. My ring light just likes to it's super cheap. I bought a super cheap ring light, and it just falls over all the time, and then it drags my camera down with it. So the problem. I should pay more than like $10 for a ring light. Why does mine only work when I indent app.listen? That's very odd. Shouldn't have to, but I mean, if it works, it works, right? All right, let's go ahead and put 5 minutes on the clock. We'll take a break. I'll leave this up. I'm gonna leave this whole thing up, so folks can, look at it and maybe do some troubleshooting if they need to figure out what might be going on. I'm gonna need to just take it down for 1 second, and there we go. Okay, let's get the timer up. 5-minute timer. All right, and I will see you all back here very shortly. I'm gonna mute this. Right. So yeah, feel free to check your code against mine. if you're having trouble getting that connection set up. And don't forget that you need to have your .env file, save your .env file, and have your connection string equal to the DB string variable within your .env file. Okay? Be back here shortly. Okay, so come on back, folks. I'm sorry I was on mute. I was talking, and then I realized you couldn't hear me, so my apologies. So Goofer, do you look at my line 5 on my screen? Yeah, it's not Rascal. That yeah, that error is definitely not loading from their connection string. I've seen that error many a time. Goofer, double check that you have this piece of code right here, required.env.config. You need that in order for it to work. All right, so timer is wound down, so come on back, folks. And get rid of this for now. But just as a reminder, this is what we're building today. We are building a autocomplete, an app, basically an app that allows you to search for movie titles, but it autocompletes your search for you by hitting a MongoDB database and giving you relevant suggestions. So it's pretty cool. So if I type in star and then Trek, we can see that it searches, it's updating the search results based on what I'm typing as I'm typing it. So, and I can choose from a variety of things, including, see, what's the worst Star Trek movie? Probably 5, right? Final Frontier? Yeah, that one's pretty bad. So it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't have any posters for the Star Trek movies. That's lame. Or we can do Star Wars. And I think Revenge of the Sith has one. There we go. There's a poster. Nice. Dog Star Man Part 4 is a classic. Yeah, there's some weird ones in there. Yeah. Okay, so this is what we're building. Basically an autocomplete, really slick autocomplete capability for our apps. Yeah. Okay, let me get my webcam back on so y'all can actually see me. Okay, there we go. And we're back. Okay, so before the break, Sumerio, looks like I can't connect to my database even using, well, Sumerio, make sure, did you paste in the right password? Because the password is your database password. It's not like your Google password or your MongoDB password. It's your actual database password that you set up when you first created your cluster. Okay, so we've connected to Mongo. Yeah, DH, but that shouldn't prevent folks from connecting to on their own computer, right? We're not trying to connect through Heroku here or anything like that. So you should be able to connect just based on like it should work from your own computer regardless of whether you've enabled network access or not. Yeah, good to see you, Jack Tree. Thank you again for the sub. So I'm going to keep going. If you're still struggling to do these connections, I would highly suggest just once you figure out what's wrong, practice setting up these connections. Just practice this part. You don't have to practice coding full apps, but get it so you can do this part every single time without fail, because this is all we're going to be doing for the rest of the course. We're going to be setting up repeated connections to Mongo. Feel free to ask on the Discord. Ask, like in the node help section or whatever, or in homework help, because you're really going to need to be able to do this and do it multiple times, because we're going to be building apps like nonstop, full stack apps nonstop for the rest of the course. So practice this. Once you do get it, make it so you can just use this basic template and set it up without fail every time. Yeah, look for spelling mistakes, that kind of thing. You can even like have these types of code snippets and just like save them on your computer, so you can just open them back up anytime you need it. But yeah, double check your environment file, double check that you saved it, double check your connection string, double check your password. Oh, Layla, thank you. Yeah, it is a Team Liquid jersey. Wow, good eye. You figured it out. Yep. That was from when they won the International a few years ago. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep going, but if you're having trouble, feel free to pause and catch the VOD and work your way back. You can catch back up as you go. So all right, we're gonna keep going. And the next thing we're gonna do is we've set up our connection. We got our Mongo client.connect, and the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna enable some middleware. We don't need a lot. But we do need a few things. So remember what middleware does is as messages are passing back and forth, traveling back and forth to and from our server, we can use middleware to help us kind of handle these messages and get them into a format that both sides of the house understand. So in order to do that, if I want to enable my middleware, I can use the use method. So app app.use. And I'm going to use three things here. I'm going to use URL encoded, express.json, and cores. So express.url encoded. And I'm going to say extended is true. That's the first one. The next one is app.use express.json. And the last one is app.use cores. Oops. There we go. Cores. Okay, so those are my three little middleware expressions that I need. I shouldn't need any others, just those three. And basically this is just saying, like, you know, hey Express, get ready to parse some JSON, read some URLs, and enable cores so that we don't get that stupid cores error in the browser. That's all we're doing there. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to start setting up some methods that is going to allow our server to communicate with apps that are, you know, sending requests to our server. So if I want my app to make a request to the server and then the server be ready to return some data to the app, what method would I use? Oh, you fixed it. Good, Goofer. That's awesome. If I want my app to return, let's say, a string to my server, if I want my server to return a string to my app, what method might I use? Yeah, get, right? We're going to use the get method. It's the R in CRUD, right? Because our choices are basically we can create, we can read, we can update, and we can delete. In this case, I want to read. I want my app to read some data from my server. And so in that case, I'm going to use the get method in order to do that. So app.get, G-E-T. And in this case, I'm going to be, I need to tell my server what URL it should be listening for. And so in this case, my URL is going to end with search. So we're going to have a search term that's going to be typed in. So this could be whatever you want as long as you make it consistent within your app. And I'm going to make this into an async function. I know I'm kind of mixing like promises and asynchronous functions here, but it's important for us to be comfortable with both. So we're going to have an async function here, and it's going to have two parameters. What two parameters are my CRUD methods always going to have? If I'm doing a put, a post, a get, a delete, whatever, what two parameters are they always going to have? Yeah, exactly. Rec and res or request and response, whichever one you want to use. Request and response. I'm going to write them out so they're a little bit easier to follow, but you could use rec and res if you prefer. Okay, so I have my request and response, and this is going to look maybe a little bit different than something that we've seen before, but just bear with me. So in here, this is where I'm actually going to send a specific object to MongoDB to tell it to, hey Mongo, search the database for me, okay? So I'm going to send it a search object that it's going to need. So I'm going to have a try catch block here. So it's going to try the search, and if it's not successful, it's going to catch an error. So try and catch. And I'm basically going to be, here I'm going to be awaiting a result. So I'm going to try, we're going to say let results equals await collection dot aggregate. Okay, so we're going to be basically what we're saying is we're saying, all right, function, you're going to await, and you're going to await some results, and we're going to be looking inside of our collection, and we're going to be aggregating some data together. Okay. So what are we going to be aggregating? Well, we're going to be aggregating the results of a search term. So this is the object that we're going to be passing in. And also, sorry, this is actually going to be inside of an array. So I need array brackets here as well. I'm going to put array brackets around my search. So I have the aggregate, and then I have array brackets, and then inside of that, I'm going to be passing in an object. And what is this object going to look like? Well, we're going to basically literally be telling MongoDB to do a search. So in order to do that, I use the syntax $search. And I'm telling it what kind of search I'm giving it. In this case, it's going to be an autocomplete search. Oh, sorry, two quotes. Autocomplete. And my query, I'm giving it an autocomplete search, and I'm giving it a query, a specific search query. And I'm going to pass it request dot query dot query. All right. So I'm passing it a query, and the path that I want it to search on is the movie title. So path is going to be title. And the type of search that I want to do is what's called a fuzzy search. Now, what is a fuzzy search? Well, remember how when we were demonstrating the app at the start of the stream, I was able to misspell some words. and it still worked, right? I was able to but it still brought me back the right result, the result that I wanted. And so what a fuzzy search does is it allows you to make some mistakes, and it still brings back the correct result, or still can bring back the correct result. So in this case, we're going to say fuzzy is going to be my search type. And I'm going to add a couple of properties here. Max edits is going to be 2, and I'll tell you what that is in a minute. Oops, sorry. Max edits is going to be 2. And our prefix length is going to be 3. Okay, so what does this do? Well, max edits basically says, hey, Mongo, the user can make up to 2 spelling errors, like to mess up 2 characters, and you should still try to bring back the correct word. So it can basically make 2 substitutions of the characters when it's trying to look for the correct result to bring back. Okay, so max edits is 2. So if I typed in, like I was trying to look for Shaun of the Dead earlier in the app, but I spelled Shaun with a W instead of a U. Well, what Mongo said was, well, I have some leeway here. I'm going to substitute that W, and I found a result with a U. And so I'm going to bring back that result with a U instead of a W because it's allowed to. It's allowed to make an edit if it wants to. And the second setting here is prefix length. So essentially what the user has to do is they have to type at least 3 characters in their word before it will start to do the search. Because if you just typed in 1 character, I mean, you're not going to get any relevant results out of that, right? It's just going to be garbage. And so really 3 characters is where you're going to start to allow Mongo to hone in a little bit better on what you're actually searching for. Oh, you got it working, Real Scunny. That's awesome. Yeah, inadequate. This is super cool. I really think this is neat. And you can, after we get this working, you can play around with these settings. This is just good for default, but you can play around with these settings and see what they do, and, change the behavior of your search. Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so just check your structure here, because I know this was like a super nested, this was a super nested object, right? We've got a bunch of nesting going on, but essentially what we're doing, right, is we're passing in a search, and we're saying, hey, this is an autocomplete search. We're passing in a specific query, search query. We're saying, Mongo, please search on the specific title within your object, search on title, movie title. And then the type of search is fuzzy. We're allowing 2 character substitutions, and we're saying that the user must type at least 3 letters before it will start the search. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Goofy. And this is actually not the only type of search that Mongo can do. This is just, we're specifically doing an autocomplete search because I think that's the coolest, but Mongo can do other types of searches also. It can do wildcard searches, like partial matches, all sorts of different types. Yeah, it's really neat. Okay, so we have this object, and then whatever we get back, we just want to send that to an array, okay? We've done this before, right? You get something back from Mongo, it comes back as some gnarly cursor object or whatever, and so you need to dump it into an array so that JavaScript, so that basically our code on the JS side can know what to do with it. Yeah, and searches, you're right, yes, and Silva. So search, that's this search URL up here. This is going to be what our app is going to be hitting, right? Because we're doing the server side code right now, but then we're going to do some app side code in a little bit that's going to hit this search URL while the user is typing in our input box. And they're going to, while they're typing, it's going to be hitting this search URL and bring back the autocomplete results in real time. It's super cool. This is how a lot of those like websites and stuff work. Like they're hitting a database and they're bringing back information while you type, and it's just super cool. The fact that it can do it that quickly just blows my mind. Like while you're typing. Okay, so we've got the results back from our search, assuming it worked, and then we need to take that response and we need to send it as a result. So we're basically saying, all right, the response that's going to come out of this GET request is going to be the results of the search query. So whatever they are, please send them back so that the app can make use of them. Okay. And so assume we want to hope that it works every time, but if it doesn't work, then we want to catch that error inside of our catch. And we just want to give a status of 500, which I forget what that status is, but it'll work. Response status 500. So whether it works or whether it doesn't, we need to make sure that we're sending a response back to the app to tell it, hey, this was successful, or hey, nope, something broke, sorry. So we're going to send that back. If it didn't work, we're just going to send, in this case, the tutorial that I referenced earlier, it's sending back like a message, but I mean, it could be whatever you want to send back. It's sending a message as an object, but message, error message, yeah. You can send back a variety of things. You could send back a string if you wanted, just something to let the app know that it didn't work. Okay, so this is what happens while the user is typing, right? They're typing something, it's hitting the database, it's grabbing things, it's sending them back saying, is this what you wanted? Is this what you wanted? Is this what you wanted? And it's displaying them, it's going to be displaying them inside that drop down while you type, right? But what happens when the user actually selects? So they're typing, they see a list of values here. I'm just going to go back to the app real quick. So they're typing in here. They're typing, things are coming back. Oh, okay. And here, right here, this is the movie that I wanted. I typed Shaun of the, and then I see this is the movie that I want, and so I click on it. So in order to actually get this data back, I'm actually going to need a second GET request. So our first GET is really going to be for just bringing back like a whole array of possibilities, right? It's going to hit it, it's going to hit the database, it's going to bring back a whole array of possibilities. But when I choose a specific title, I want it to only bring back the specific information associated with the one title that I chose. So in this case, we want a second GET to only bring back one item. And that GET will only run once I click on an item in the title. Or sorry, I click on an item in the results. Okay, does that make sense? I want to be clear, you know, what the purpose, we're making a second GET request for a reason, right? Full stack crud. I host that one on Mongo, or sorry, on Heroku. I don't remember. You can look at my when I did my MD-Res, when I did my Star Trek API video. Look for my field. So it's called Field Guide to Aliens. And that one we did. That's a Mongo database. It has a Mongo database backend, and it's hosted on Heroku. So if you're getting errors, watch my Field Guide to Aliens video, and that should hopefully help you sort it out what might be going wrong. Yeah, Field Guide to Aliens is the one where we hosted it on Heroku. We got the MongoDB backend. It's the full stack. Okay. So our second GET request is going to be, so this first one, remember this first one is just to bring back the autocomplete stuff while we're typing. And the second GET is going to be just for bringing back the information associated with the specific movie that I wanted. Do we cache the search results based on the first few characters of the search query to speed it up? Well, we do have an index. We have an index on MongoDB on the title for MongoDB. So it's searching an index database or index collection. Yeah. So this particular code is not on GitHub yet. I will put it on GitHub. I realized I didn't do that before we started today, so I apologize for that. But yeah, I'll get it up on GitHub. But just remember that there's a lot of stuff that we did that is outside of the actual code. For example, setting up our index on our MongoDB, you know, loading in the sample data, that kind of thing. So be mindful of that. Okay, so our second GET, app.get, is going to bring back, once the user clicks on something, going to bring back the specific data associated with that movie. So in this case, we're going to have a different endpoint that it's listening for. We're just going to say, I'm going to just say get ID. And I have that little colon. I have this little colon right here because this is, does anybody remember what this is called? When we have a colon and then a word. Anybody remember what that's called? It's okay if you don't. Oh, Jim, no, that's totally fine. That's, yeah, Jim posted the link to that specific YouTube video. That's fine. Yeah, it's right. It's called a parameter. Yeah. So colon ID is essentially what we're going to be passing in is the specific ID of the object that we want to bring back. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do get ID, and again, we're going to have an asynchronous function here, and I'm going to have my request and response. I need those every time. Response. Weird, why is that? I don't know why that's yellow. I think I spelled it right. No. Why are you yellow? I'm just copying it from up here. There. Nope, turned it yellow again. All right, whatever. Okay. And this is going to be an arrow function. And inside of this, there we go. Now it's the right color. So inside of the second GET, we're going to have another try catch block, just like we did before. This is going to look similar. Snarfin, will we generally be using async from now on? Well, I mean, async await, it's just a newer way to write promises, right? So using this classic promise notation isn't a bad thing. Async await does allow for a little bit more flexibility as far as scope of variables. But I mean, you could use either one, really, and we have used either one, right? And it works just fine. I'm pushing mine every 5 lines to fill up my GitHub green squares. Yeah, you get those squares. Go for it. Okay. How often do you send a GET request on every text change event? Well, in this case, for our first set of GETs, right, it's going to resend that request every time that prefix length of a word is at least 3 characters. So it's going to resend that fairly often, and then as you keep typing, it's going to keep sending it and refining the search. So it's expecting to have to do this search a lot, which is again why we index the title, that title field. That's why we indexed it, so it could actually search it at speed. The function name is async. Yeah, no, the function is anonymous. We're using an async type function, asynchronous, which is a newer way to write promises. If you're familiar with promises, this is just a newer way to write promises. Yeah. Okay, so inside of our try block, again, we're going to have a result. Let results equals await. Oops, sorry, not connection, collection. Find, no, okay, hey, wait, I'm gonna let you guys tell me what this should be. So if I want to, so now I know I've clicked on a specific item, right? And I'm literally passing the database ID of that item from the app to my server. And essentially I want to go to Mongo and say, hey, Mongo, find the single item that matches with this ID. So what method might I use if I know I want Mongo to find a single item? Does anybody know the method I might use? I want to find a single item. Yeah, right? Express makes it pretty easy to remember these things, doesn't it? You don't have to work too hard. So we can just say, find, hey Mongo, find one item, please. Cool. All right. Oh, and this is going to be, it's a method, so I need to have my parentheses. Whoop, I can't. There we go. Fingers don't work. All right, so find one item, please, Mongo. And inside of there, I'm going to have an object, and I'm going to send to Mongo the ID that I want to find. ID. And that's an object ID. That's an ID of a database object or a document. And so I need to tell Mongo that, hey, this is not just a regular property. This is a database object ID. So I say, all right, Mongo, I'm giving you an object ID, and that object ID is equal to this ID parameter that I'm passing in. Okay, request dot params dot ID. Right, I'm passing in an ID within the URL, and I need to tell Mongo, yep, that's the object ID right there. That's what I'm passing in. Okay. And assuming that works, I should get a result back. And so as a response, I'm going to send response dot send result. So send all this information that I get back from my from Mongo, send all that movie information back to my app. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. Kojo asks, why couldn't you use find by ID? I haven't used find by ID. This is basically the syntax that I found that Mongo seemed to recommend for bringing back a specific object ID. So I don't know if this is better or worse, but this is what we're using in this case. Yeah, this is just the syntax for ID. If you look in Mongo, at the ID field, like within your database, within your collection, if you look at each individual document, each individual document has an ID, and it does have that underscore there. Yeah, I think it just denotes it as being a special field. But yeah, that's how it looks. All right, and so again, we're going to catch our errors. So I'm just going to grab this and paste it in. It's the same catch. All right, we're catching our error and we're sending an error message if it doesn't work. Cool. Right, so we're cooking along here pretty good. So really this is all we need for our server file. We're done. All we needed was 2 GET requests, one that would bring back the data while we're typing, the second one that brings back the data once we make a selection and we choose the specific movie that we want. It's going to bring back like the, all the associated stuff with that object. Okay, so we can go ahead and save this. And now our server is ready and able to listen for requests that are coming from our app. So now we can actually start working on the app side of things. But does anybody have any questions on this before we leave our server and start working on the app side of our code? I mean, yeah, you can check the server, but you don't. You could check it with Postman if you wanted. You could check your server and make sure that you can. I guess, well, you'd have to pass, but the thing is, you'd have to pass in a specific request. And that might be kind of hard with the way this is set up. Oh, so the top up here. Yeah, you can restart it. We can restart it real quick. But I don't think you're going to get any errors just because we're not passing any requests to and from it yet. Yeah, so it's still running and it's connected to the database, so no problem there. What is aggregate? That's a good question. So to aggregate something means essentially to take things like to take a group of things and bring them together. Bring them together. And so in this case, that's what we're doing. We're taking a collection, we're getting a bunch of search results out of that collection, and we're bundling them all together. That's a good word, bundle, indeed. We're bundling them all together into an array of search results, right? Because those, like if I'm doing a search on a specific word, like those movie titles could be everywhere in the database. They could be at the start, they could be at the end, they could be all over and separated by huge amounts of invalid results. And so we want to take all those separate results and bring them together into an array. That's a great question. All right, so somebody wanted to see the top, which is up here. And during the next break, I'm going to push this to GitHub so y'all can, I should have done that beforehand and I forgot. So, yeah, and yes, exactly. That's exactly right, AWS. It will return an array of the titles while we're typing. And those titles are then going to get put into like a drop down while we're typing so you can click on the results. Yep, it's exactly right. Yeah, so we're just putting it in an array and then we're going to send that to the app and the app is actually going to deal with how to handle it. Okay? Cooler than Netflix. WGS, do exclamation point YouTube in the chat right here. Exclamation point YouTube, that'll give you a link to my channel. Yeah, and I do move the videos there. Generally once a week, sometimes I forget, but generally once a week I'll move the previous week's videos to YouTube. So exclamation point YouTube, WGS, there you go. YouTube, you gotta type it out. Exclamation point YouTube, or somebody else can do it. And that'll bring back the link for you. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done with our server here, and so now we can move to the app side of things and start coding that out. There you go, you got it. Perfect. And like I said, during the break, I will push this to GitHub, and I'll give you guys a link to the repository. We'll take another break in about 15 minutes, and so you'll have everything that we've done up thus far. So if you're having issues with your code, you can check it against mine and see what might be going wrong. I don't have that command flow, unfortunately. All right, so let's move on to the app side of things. And so I know we're doing things kind of in one folder, but in this case, it's kind of a single pipeline app. So we'll go ahead and create our index.html file. And I'm going to set up the basic structure of that. I can, in order to do that very quickly, I can just type HTML and choose HTML5. That'll give me all of my basic, you know, header stuff and a title and a body and all that. So we don't have to type that out manually. Now I also need to add my links to my style sheet and to my JavaScript. Thanks, Rascal. Rascal is the command, indeed. Yes. All right, so I need to link to my style sheet, and which we don't have yet, but we will. I'm going to grab that. That's going to be inside of my header. All right. Style sheet. And that's what I'm going to link for now. We're going to add some more stuff, but that's good enough for now. And then I also need to make sure I am linking my main.js, which we're also going to have in a moment. So at the bottom of my body, I'm going to put that as well. So I'm linking to both my style sheet and to main.js. And now I can start adding things to my body. And really, I don't need very much inside of my body for this to work. Because if we look back at the app, it's very simple, right? We have an input box with a label. We have, you know, potentially some kind of a list. And then we have a place for our movie poster to go. And so really, those are the only elements that we need. And our code is going to fill in the rest. So I'm going to have a couple of, these can be sections or divs or whatever you want to make them. I'm going to have a section with a class of, I'm going to call it UI widget. I just think that's a funny name. You can call it whatever you want as long as you remember what it is. And this is where I'm going to put my input box as well as the label for that input box. So my input box is going to have a label. And we're going to have, that's going to be a label for an input box that's called title. And let's see, that my label is really just going to be title. That's all we're searching for. Label for title, and my input box, which I'm sure you've done before, is going to have an ID of title because we're going to want to target it later. And then I'm also going to have a list where I'm going to put my cast, all my cast information into that list. So I'm going to have an unordered list with a UL tag, ID, and cast. Okay. So that's a good start there. So that what this is going to do is it's going to bring up an input box with a label of title. And then we're going to basically setting up the structure to have a list that we're going to populate with some list items later. Although we don't need to add any list items right now because our code is going to do that for us. Okay. So the last thing I want to do is I want to add a separate section for my image box. So that's just going to be image tag with an empty source for now because we're going to be dropping the movie poster in there later on. Bevaran, when should you use form? Yeah, so in this case, we're really only taking in one field. So we don't need a form. You could use one. I don't think there's any harm in that. And form has some really nice, built-in capabilities for passing in. Basically, what forms are really great for is when you have multiple fields and you want to pass you want to aggregate all of those fields together and pass them together like as one object, up to a server or whatever. Forms are really great for that because for certain actions, forms can just do that automatically. You don't have to do it manually. It can just bundle those up into a nice little object, send them up to your server, and you're good to go. But in this case, we're just sending one thing, right? So we don't need to go to all that trouble. Snarfin, are we going to use EJS? No, but we'll probably talk about that after the break. In order to do autocomplete search, we have to do things a little bit differently, but it's not a huge deal. Driftwood, is this where path title comes into play in the server? Yes. So we're essentially, well, we're passing a title up to our server.js, right? We're passing that up as part of the URL, I believe. And then that is going to be, let's look back at this real quick. So yeah, path title is what's going to get passed up, and then that's what's going to go into our search query. So yeah, you're right. Yep. So let's save this for now. And I think before we go too much farther, I'm going to go ahead and create my Git repository for this. Because I don't want folks to get too far in the weeds as we go for the next step of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and create my Git repository, and this is good practice too. So we've got this far, and before the break, I'm going to just get the Git repository set up. So I'm going to go ahead and do git init. And I think that, yeah, I'm in the right place. Good deal. And I'm going to do git add. Oh, sorry. Wait a second. What do I want to do if I don't want to pass up a bunch of junk to GitHub? Yeah, careful. I know. Yeah. Yep. I almost forgot. Yeah, I need to git ignore, don't I? Yes. Exactly. Yeah, I need a git ignore. And in my git ignore, I want to put a couple things. What are some things what should I put inside my git ignore? Yeah, node modules, right? Yeah, and env, exactly. So I'm gonna put .env, and let's see, can I put the full, yeah, I guess I have to put the full node modules, right? Yeah. Node modules. Yeah, I always forget. Usually I look back at one of my other projects, but that's all right. We're just doing it live. Y'all will tell me if I screw it up. So I'm going to save that. And so what's going to happen there is now you see, look at that. I don't know if you saw that. That was pretty quick. But as soon as I clicked save on or as soon as I hit save on my git ignore, the little uncommitted icon beside my env went away. And also node modules, same thing. It turned kind of gray. And then also my source control little icon here, which is probably really small, it went from like 1,000 uncommitted things down to 5. So that's why we use git ignore to ignore some of the things that we want to skip over. Yeah. Because yes, Rascal, you are correct. Even though my internet is very fast, not bragging or anything, fiber baby, even though my internet is very fast, we still want to be, good practice. Twisted, yeah, so these icons, if y'all didn't know, let's just pause here for a second on this. These little icons, so, because VS Code is a Microsoft product, it's very closely integrated with GitHub and all that sort of thing. And so you can do your commits directly from VS Code. You don't have to do it in the terminal. You can do them directly from this source control, which is right here. So if we look at this, you can commit, you can do all the git commands from GitHub right here. Yeah. So, and also, having the little U here will help remind you of things that you haven't committed yet. And yeah, it's just really nice. All right, so we have those in our git ignore, and I'm going to go ahead and do git add dot. All right, and we can see that the U has now changed to an A, right? Which is showing that they're added, but they're not committed. I'm going to go ahead and do a git commit m initial commit for demo, commit that. Okay. And I'm also going to set up my repository. Do that off screen here. Or on screen, who cares? GitHub. Go to my profile, set up a repository, just do the whole thing. It's all good. So new is going to be autocomplete search MongoDB. So wait. MongoDB autocomplete search. There we go. Okay. I've created the repository, and then what I do, like, what I normally do if I hadn't already created the local repository is I would just copy this whole thing and run it in Git Bash. But in this case, I already have an existing repo, which I just created. So we'll just grab this second snippet of code here, and we'll do that instead. All right. Up a little bit. Paste. All right, so that should add that. What this has done is it's added the GitHub repository as the origin. Set the branch to main, and now it'll link our GitHub repository with our local repository, and go ahead and do the push. There we go. We can see that it pushed 7 objects, and now if you look, this list of uncommitted changes has now gone away. And none of my, like, there's no weird little letters next to any of my files anymore. So everything is now backed up on GitHub, and I will give you the link to that specific repo if you're struggling with the code and you would like to just go ahead and look at what I've done so far. And I'll keep committing and pushing as we go, so that way you can keep up a little better. I should have done that before. I apologize, but now we have it. So here is, I'm putting a direct link to the repository in the chat. That's a direct link there, so go ahead and grab that. Or you can always do !GitHub and see everything that I currently have posted publicly on GitHub. But yeah, what I posted there in chat is a direct link to the repo. Am I using Node.js or something else? Yes, we're using Node with Express on top in order to do this work. Yep, Node and Express. Not getting too crazy with it. So I think we're about at break time. I think this is probably a pretty good stopping point, but any other questions before we have another 5-minute break, and I let you all maybe take a glance at the code that I have up there on GitHub if you're having any trouble. Any other questions? So what we've done so far, right, is we've configured MongoDB to expect, we put an index on our movie titles, and we said, hey, Mongo, get ready, because I think we're going to be doing autocomplete searches on these movie titles. And so Mongo's like, yep, I got an index for you. It's ready for autocomplete type searches. Then we set up our server.js file to pass an autocomplete search. When it hears the correct URL, it's going to say, hey, Mongo, do an autocomplete search for me, would you? And Mongo's like, yep, I'm already set up for that. I got you. And so it's going to go ahead and do the autocomplete search and send the results back to our server. And then when the user clicks on the appropriate item, it's going to do a second get and just get a single item with the ID of the object that was clicked. Okay, so that's where we're at so far. The next thing that what we're going to do when we come back is we're going to configure our main.js file. So we're going to finish up our index.html, and we're going to configure our main.js in order to work together to display the autocomplete results and pass the appropriate requests to our server. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions, so we'll go ahead and take a break, 5 minutes, and I'll see y'all back here shortly. And we should be so there's no button. No, there won't be any button here. It's going to happen directly when the user clicks on the result in the dropdown. Here, let's just look real quick. Let's look back at the demo here that I have. So we'll reload this. We'll just say, I'll type gone. You can notice it. So notice it only started searching after I typed the 3rd character, right? Because that's how we set up our search query. We said, hey, Mongo, don't start, or hey, server, don't send this search until until the third letter was typed. So gone. If I choose gone with the wind, it brings back the results as soon as I click the item, and it immediately brings back the result. There's no button. We don't need a button in this case. Gone, or if I go back, it'll start searching again. Gone. Let's see, what's another one? Gone in 60 seconds. Yeah, Nicolas Cage classic. All right, Nicolas Cage. Oh yeah, I forgot Angelina Jolie was in it as well. So yeah, each time we click, we immediately get the result back. Yeah. Okay, 5 minutes. I'll see y'all back here shortly. Again, go to my repository, go to that specific repository I just created if you want to check your code against mine. And I'll see you back here in a bit. Timer. Alrighty, folks, we got about a minute left, so come on back. All right. Go ahead and stop the timer. Welcome back, welcome back. Okay, so again, there's a link to my repository where I have all the code that we've done so far. And I'm going to continue to commit and push as we go. Oops. I'm going to continue to commit and push as we go, so you can follow along a little more easily. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our index.html file, and we're going to add a couple more things. So we have the basic structure. Oh, I need to turn my webcam back on. Sorry. Getting to do that. There we go. Hello. So we have the basic structure of what we're going to be dumping our information into. But we're going to add a couple of additional elements. And the first thing, the additional elements that we're going to be needing are actually going to be related to jQuery. Now, you may have heard of jQuery before. It's not as common as it used to be. It used to be very common. But in this case, we are going to use jQuery to help facilitate the autocomplete elements of our search box. Now, there may be a newer, better way to do this. The method that I found uses jQuery, so that's what we're going to use. And I mean, I imagine that you'll probably will see jQuery on the job just because it used to be so very common, even though it's not as common anymore. So jQuery it is. Feel free to let me know if there's better alternatives that you all find. In this case, it seems to work just fine. There's nothing wrong with it, so we'll use that. Yeah, it is fading out for most things, but for the specific ability to autocomplete within like a box, I didn't find a better option other than like installing like an additional plugin or whatever. And so I'm like, well, jQuery is here. Might as well just use it versus some random thing that I find online. Whereas jQuery is, it's familiar, it's safe. I'm just going to use that. Hey, Uberfly, welcome. Uberfly, if you want to follow along, yeah, I never used it before, and that's the thing. Like that's what what Driftwood said. You'll see it a lot, so it's important. It's good to maybe get a little familiar with it, even though it's not exactly the modern thing. Hey, it looks like we got some new folks in here. If you want to follow along a little bit, you did miss some of the stuff we did, like configuration stuff that we did on the MongoDB side. But if you do want to follow along, do !GitHub and look in my repos for the MongoDB autocomplete search repo. That's what we're pushing to right now. So, oh, and Rascal just pasted a link to it there, so feel free to follow that link and grab the code if you would like. Again, you'll be missing some stuff that we did on the MongoDB side, but at the end of the stream, I'll probably go over that again, just to help folks who maybe missed the beginning. Okay, so what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to link to some jQuery content up here in our header. Okay, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna paste the links in chat, and I'm also obviously gonna push it up to GitHub, so you can grab it any of those ways and get all the links that you need. I'm gonna link to several things here in my header. I'm just going to replace my single style sheet link with a bunch of these jQuery links. Yeah, so I should have 2 links and 2 scripts. That's what we're going to do. Driftwood, that's actually the tutorial that I partially followed to put together this project. So it's not, that tutorial uses some outdated elements. So I updated those elements to be more modern, other than the jQuery element. But yes, I did look at that, Driftwood. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And you can, anybody is welcome to look at that, in their own time. Yeah. I just made I took that, modified it pretty heavily, and made it more similar to the kind of things we've been doing in class. So it looks more familiar, not totally weird and alien. Okay, so here's the jQuery stuff. And I'm also going to drop these links in chat so you can drop them in your code. Boop, there you go. There's all that. And then also I'm going to go ahead and just do a git. I'm going to do a commit and push right now. Oh, git add. jQuery links. Oh, I didn't save. I'm a dingus. All right. Do that all the time. All right, and then we'll do a git push, and that way you'll have the links on GitHub too if you prefer to grab them that way. All right, there we go. I see your stretch. Right. That feels good in the shoulders. Nice. Okay. Driftwood, it looks like you tried to comment something there and it turned it into asterisks. So, all right, so there's the jQuery links are in there. What's this? What is the, sorry, I'm trying to follow here. What is the star, star, star? Oh, sorry. Gosh, dang it. It got modded. Okay, sorry. Go to the repository. Oh, okay. Yeah, on my side it looks fine, so I apologize for that. Just go to that repo link that I shared. Go to the repo and just grab it from there is what would be my suggestion rather than posting it in chat. Yeah, just go to the repo, go to my index.html, and they're all in there. So just grab them straight out of the repo. I'll even link you straight to the index file. There you go. That's a direct link to the file where you can grab all the links that you need to put in your header. Works in my chat. I know, right? It's the classic complaint. Works on my machine. Yeah, I've heard that so many times. Shiver. Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, that's the direct link that should give you all the jQuery links that you need. And with that, I think that's all the modifications we need to make to our index.html file. Just double checking here in my notes, one moment. So we've got our jQuery, we've got our scripts. All right, yes, so I think we're good to go there. Now, never mind, figured out how to fix it. Leaves no breadcrumb. Yeah, exactly. Yes. So now that we've kind of got all of our script links here ready to go, let's move over and let's start working on the JavaScript that we need. So we have our HTML tags, which we have our input box, we have our list, empty list ready, we have our image tag ready, but obviously none of this is hooked up to anything, right? So we need to hook up these tags to our various elements and then have our app talk to our server, which is then going to talk to Mongo. So in order to do that, we're going to need a main.js. This is going to be our app side JavaScript file, which is going to interface with our DOM, with our HTML elements, right? So you mean to say Twitch chat is not the best platform for sharing code? Who would have thought? Yeah, it's not well. It's not. You mean Twitch was not built as an educational, as a coding teaching tool? Golly gee, what were they thinking? What is Twitch even for anyway, if not for this? Okay, so now we're gonna get a little funky. Because in our JavaScript file, we're actually going to start using jQuery to do some of the specific things that we need to do in order to make our HTML elements behave the way we want. And probably the main thing is that we want to be able to do autocomplete searches and have our input box kind of like automatically give us a big list of results, right? We want it to keep refreshing that list of results, displaying it, and making that list clickable. It's time to pack it up, boys and girls. Hey, if you want to just like, sit back and, put your feet up for like the next, few minutes while I code this out, you can always just grab it off of GitHub. Really, I mean, I'm not stopping you. But yeah, I'll be pushing this up to GitHub. So if you don't want to follow along with this part, that's fine. But I think you will recognize, a lot of the things that we're doing. Just the syntax will be slightly different. So you'll be able to follow along and you'll be like, yeah, I know what that looks like. I know what that's doing, but it'll just has a slightly different syntax. So it's not going to be completely out of left field. All right. It's not going to be like WebGL. But yeah, I don't mind if y'all fork my stuff. Anything that I post up on my GitHub is for consumption, really. I mean, I don't generally post homework on GitHub, like our actual homework that we're expected to do, just because, people are going to copy it. It's on GitHub, people are going to copy it. But stuff like this, absolutely copy it. Make something cool out of it and then share it with me on Twitter. Just as long as you tag me on Twitter, at MyOwnWolf, feel free to copy and make something cool. All right, anyway, so we're going to do some jQuery stuff here. We're going to say document dot ready, and inside of this we are going to set up a function. So document.ready function, not passing anything into this function, and in this function we are going to target that input box, the specific input box that we have on our page. We're going to target it, and we're going to say that we want that input box to be an autocomplete style box. And yeah, the database builder was fun to mess around with. Yeah, that was really fun. That's why I make this stuff, because I want it to be fun. I want it to spark people's brains. All right, so we're going to target the input box, which we gave the name of title, right? We called it title. And literally the cool thing here is that we can say title dot autocomplete. Complete, like that's built in, that's a thing. Title autocomplete, and then all we need to do is just tell jQuery what the source of that autocomplete data should be, which I think is really rad. Like this is like a built-in thing. Yeah, it's like jQuery's like, yeah, all right, you want to turn that input box into an autocomplete box? I got you. I can do this. And all we need to do is say, all right, jQuery, the source of that autocomplete data. We need to just tell it where to find it. So does anybody have any guesses on, all right, so we know that the source of my autocomplete data is going to be stuff from the database. So how do I get data? If I'm an app, how do I talk to a server and say, hey, server, give me some data? What do I do? Something we've done many times before. This is not a jQuery thing. This is just a JS thing that we've done a bajillion times. Yes. Fetch. Yes, remember, we are the app. And apps fetch things from the server, right? If the server is our UPS man and I'm the customer, I'm fetching something from the UPS man. Okay? So we're going to do a fetch inside of our little source here. So we're saying, hey, jQuery, we want to do an autocomplete here. And the source of that autocomplete is going to be some fetch data. So just wait on that fetch data, will ya? And it allows us to do that, which I think is really cool. So in this case, our source is going to be an asynchronous function, and it's going to be a fetch. So async function, request response, request response. And inside of that function, we're going to say let data await fetch. Okay. And I think I'm missing a autocomplete. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm missing a bracket here. My apologies. So inside of my autocomplete, I need a bracket because this is an object. Boop, boop. Brackety bracket. There we go. That looks better. Now it's not giving me little liney lines. All right, let data is going to be, we're going to be awaiting a fetch. So we're going to go out to our server. Well, we're going to ask the server for some data. It's going to go, we want to go fetch that data from our server. And then once we get that data back, we're going to assign it to our data variable. Okay. So we're going to fetch, and I'm going to hard code this URL for now. If you wanted to, you could put the URL in a variable, so that way if you decide to move it around somewhere else, you could just change the URL that way. I'm going to be a little bit lazy and I'm going to hard code it. But in this case, we're going to be fetching from our local host. And we're going to use this URL. I'm going to copy and paste it in because otherwise I'll screw it up and type it wrong. And we're going to hit our local host. It's going to be 8,000. We're going to hit our local host 8,000. We're going to do a search, and that search query is going to be whatever search term that we pass in. So whatever we typed in title in that input box, whatever we typed in the input box, it's going to pass that up to the server in this URL. Okay? And if you remember, when we coded our server, we told it to listen for a URL that contains this search keyword, right? So we're essentially saying, hey, server, start your autocomplete get protocol from MongoDB. So everything is lined up and listening for this. And now we're actually sending it that search term and the specific trigger to start that search. Okay. Oh, thank you, Ankit. Glad you're enjoying it. And Silva, any way to do it with vanilla JavaScript? So in this, I haven't found, so the linchpin here is this built-in autocomplete function. You can fetch, right? You can fetch with regular JavaScript. You don't need jQuery for that. But this specific built-in autocomplete functionality is something that I mean, you'd have to install some kind of a extra, plugin or whatever library or whatever. In this case, I'm just using jQuery because it's familiar. As far as I know, vanilla JS cannot do this, but I might be wrong. Who knows? I've been wrong before. Okay, so we have our fetch. Now, I'm awaiting the fetch, and if we remember that, a fetch is a promise, right? So after we get the data back, then we want to turn the results. So we're going to fetch something, we're going to get results back, and we're going to turn those results into JSON. So in order to do that, we can just say results equal results .json. Okay. Then we're going to take the results that are now in JSON, and what we're going to do is we're going to map them. We're essentially we're going to map them to a new object. Results. Take the result, and for each result, we're going to map it to a new object. Results.map, and that resulting object, we're going to return. So I'll admit I'm not 100% sure on what this is doing, so just bear with me, but it works. So We're going to return a new object with several properties. It's going to be, so it's like we're taking all the results and we're returning this new object that we're constructing. So the label is going to be result.title. Oh, I think I know what this is doing actually. Give me 1 second to finish. Value is going to be result.title, and ID is going to be result._ID. Okay. And at the very end of that, we're going to send back a response. Okay. To result.title. Yes, to result. Yes, that's a good question. To result.titles is correct. Yeah, that's not a typo. Yeah. So we're sending back some data there, and then I think I have too many tabs here. Let me see if I can fix my tabs a little bit. Tab that back. That's a little better. And essentially, I think what this is doing, and I mean, I'm not 100% here. I think what this is doing is it's fetching the data, and then it's doing a back and forth, right? It's doing a back and forth with the server, because we need that. As we're typing, we need to be, talking back and forth with the server and doing multiple fetches. So I think that's what it's doing. We're doing a back and forth with our server as we type to keep exchanging information until we determine, which result they actually want to click on. Because they're going to need to keep updating that as we go. So I think that's what it's doing. It's just a back and forth. All right, and so once that's done, once we've done that, the next thing we want to do is handle we've brought back all this data and we're going to display it in our little input, like in our little input box dropdown. But we also need to have a separate request for when they click on something, when they actually choose the item that they want to click on. We want to send that data as well, and then get the appropriate response back and write it to the DOM, right? So the second thing is when they actually make a selection, we need to fetch that specific data, tell the server to fetch the specific data, and get the response back and write it to the DOM. Okay. So we can see that this is, enclosed inside of a larger object, right? Where's my, yeah. So it's enclosed inside of a larger object. We're finishing up the autocomplete. Oh yeah, and we're actually still inside of the autocomplete here because the closing parentheses there. So we've set the source. The source is our fetch, right? The source for our autocomplete data is our fetch. And then we have a couple of additional properties that we need to set up within our autocomplete. So the min length of our autocomplete is going to be 2. I don't know how much that matters since we already set a minimum length on the server side, but we're going to set it anyway. And the next thing we're going to set up is our actual selection. So how the user can select the item that they're going to end up wanting. So we set the source for the data that's going to appear. We set the minimum length or whatever. The last thing we need to set is, all right, what happens with the select? What happens when they select an item from our list of options that we give them? Okay, so select, when they do a selection, we're going to create a new function with a couple parameters. Whoops, UI, there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and console log the item ID. So essentially what this is doing is it's going to pass, it's going to pass the specific ID of the item that they selected. So not the title, it's actually going to get the database ID of the item that they selected and pass it up to the server and say, hey server, get this specific item for me, would you? Because like let's say, why wouldn't we just pass the title, right? Why wouldn't we just pass the movie title that they clicked on? Wouldn't that be easier? Well, what happens every 10 years or so with movies, right? You get a remake with the exact same title, and it's very confusing. So in this case, we want to pass the specific object ID because that is going to allow us to actually get the database object that we want. Because I think when we were looking earlier, there's like, sometimes there's like 3 or 4 versions of a single movie title because there's been, remakes over the years. So I'm going to go ahead and console log the item ID just to make sure it's coming through. UI item.id. And now I'm going to do my second fetch. So this is after they've clicked on the item. I'm going to do my second fetch. Yetch. Stop trying to make fiat happen. Okay, and I'm going to hit my local host again, but I'm going to pass separate, a slightly different term in, right? So this time my second fetch is listening for this get path. And in this case, I'm going to actually pass the item ID in. So here is the URL. I'm going to paste it in chat for you. There you go. Hopefully that worked. Let me know if it didn't work. Well, Snarfin, and that's kind of my goal is I try to do these harder projects, on VOD, so that way it gives you more of a jumping off point to modify this and make it into something even cooler, right? So if you don't feel like you're able to do this on your own, I can do the legwork for you, and then then you can make it cooler by just making modifications to the foundation that's already there. So yeah, that's why I do it. All right, so we have our second fetch, and this time we're gonna fetch on the specific item ID. And if you remember, our second get on our server side is looking for a specific item ID. It's going to find one item that matches and bring that back, give that back to us. Oh yeah, you're right. We changed our server to port 8000. That's a very good catch. Yes. Good catch, everybody. All right. So our results, again, we're going to get the result back and we're going to turn it into JSON. Result.json. And then the next thing we're going to do is, so we have this JSON, and now we need to pull apart the bits of the JSON that we actually need, and we're going to write them to the DOM, right? We're going to write them to the specific elements in the DOM that we want to fill out. So I'm going to take the results. Oops. Results, and this time I'm going to use another jQuery sort of little identifier here. We're going to target, so instead of doing document.query selector, jQuery has a little bit of a shorthand here, and we can target this specific item, which is this is our list. This cast ID. This cast ID is attached to our list in our HTML. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to empty it. I'm going to make it empty. So if it had something in it before, I'm going to clear it out. So that way we don't keep adding to it, right? Because if we did this the way we're going to do it, it would just add more cast onto the bottom. But in this case, with jQuery, we can just be like cast.empty, boop, easy peasy. All right, so we emptied out first, and then what we want to do is we want to go into our results. We want to loop through. We want to loop through and grab all of the cast, cast items, which are going to be in an array. They're going to be in an array, and we're gonna create list items for each one. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do results.cast. So we're digging into our result set. We're looking into the cast, the specific cast key. And for each item in there, we're going to loop through for each cast. We are going to append a new list item. Now, again, jQuery is going to make it fairly easy for us to do this. We're going to say, we can just say cast.append. And what are we going to be appending? Well, we're going to be appending a list item. So instead of doing node child, append child node or whatever, it's actually pretty clean to do it this way. And we can do it with a template literal. So we're just saying list item, please. Append a list item for me. And inside of that list item, put the cast name, put the name for, so we'll loop through, grab all the cast members and put them inside of a list item and drop them inside of our unordered list. All right, the next thing we want to do is we also want to clean this up a little bit. Oop, there we go. We also want to drop the movie poster inside of our image, right? We already have our image tag set up. We want to drop the movie poster inside of there. And so in order to do that, in order to target it, we don't need to do document.query selector. We can just do, hey, jQuery, please hit the image tag and change. What we want to do is we want to change the source attribute. So we can say attribute, update the image source, and change it to the URL for the poster, which is inside of the object. So we can say results.poster. That's going to change. It's going to set source equal to whatever URL is there for the poster. L. Robertola, why jQuery? Well, because we're specifically trying to do an autocomplete search here. We have an input box and we want it to do autocomplete. And so in this case, jQuery has a built-in autocomplete method that we can use. And so that's why we're using jQuery. And it looks very familiar to, like these, like fetch and that kind of thing looks very familiar to things we've already done before. So it's not impossible to follow for folks, that are used to just vanilla JavaScript. So that's why I picked it. There may be better things, there may be better ways to do it, like React, but we haven't touched on React in class at all yet, and I don't want to get too far out of left field. So this is what we're going to stick with for this. Yeah, no worries at all. Yeah. But yeah, so it has this built-in autocomplete, and so essentially what all this did was it said, all right, keep fetching from our server to display the autocomplete results and refresh those autocomplete results, and as they keep typing, display new results, and then as soon as they choose one of those results, do a second fetch and grab the specific item that we want to bring back. Is that a Team Liquid jersey? It is, yes. That was from when they won the Dota International, the Dota 2 International a couple of years ago. Oh, it's more than a couple now. It's like 5 years ago. Yeah. It's actually very comfortable. It's good quality. Okay, I think that's it for this. I'm going to go ahead and push this. I mean, I haven't tested it yet, but YOLO, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and push it, and then we'll test it. With this, I think we should be ready to test. But I expect that we'll probably get some errors just because we've gone so long without trying anything out. But let's do git add. But we'll work through, this will be a good exercise in troubleshooting too, right? We get to practice our troubleshooting. If and when we get errors when we run this, we'll practice troubleshooting and we'll figure out where the problems are. Because troubleshooting in itself is a valuable skill. If you can troubleshoot well, your coworkers will love you. All right, git commit m, jQuery finished. All right, and we'll do a git push. What is the term on request term? Oh, yeah, so the term on request.term, that's essentially whatever they typed in. That's whatever they typed into the box, it's going to send that up to the server and have it deal with it. So if I start typing gone, like the word gone, for like if I want to look for Gone with the Wind or Gone Girl or whatever, that's what gets passed up to the server, and then the server handles it using the parameters that we set before. So theoretically, let's say I typed in the word gone. Okay, so it's going to be sent up in this URL. The server is going to get it, and the server is going to read it in as a search, and It's going to be passed in with our query here. And it's going to be checked against all of the titles in the database. So our search term of gone is going to be passed in as this query. It's going to be checked against all the titles in the database, which we've previously indexed. It's going to allow for up to 2 character substitutions, and the word needs to be at least 3 characters long. Okay, so I think I've saved this. I've pushed it up. So let's try it. And I think maybe I'm also going to restart my server because I need to do that. Node server.js. There we go. Server's running. We'll connect to the database. Jim, you used to troubleshoot old basic programs that had errors in the magazines. Wow. Amma, do you have any tips for learning how to troubleshoot well? Well, we might get to find out here in a second. Number 1 is just be patient, because you might have to like go through, might have to spend an hour or so looking for a comma or a semicolon. Number 2 is read carefully. Don't just say, I'm getting an error, and then what do I do? Well, is there any error text? Did you really read the error text to see what it's trying to tell you? Did you click on any links or log files that it gives you? So we'll see in a second. We'll see if I screwed this up or not. And so our server is running. Now I'm going to go back to my index.html, and I'm just going to do this on live server for now. Start my server. Okay, so good start. I see my title box. Now, if I start typing, let's see. Well, first of all, let's check and see if we have any errors. We're going to check the console. Okay, so I've got a couple errors. Let's see what those errors are. Oh, I forgot to create my style.css. So it's trying to read in a style sheet that doesn't exist. So let's fix that right now. We'll drop in a few simple styles, and then we'll try this again. Whoopsie. All right, I'm going to create a style.css. Okay, and I'm going to drop in just a few very simple styles just to make things a little cleaner. There's not much here. I'm just adding a little bit of margin on the body. You can do it without, you don't have to have styles. And I'm setting a max height for my movie posters because otherwise they come in super tall. So I'm just setting a max height for the movie posters, and I'm setting a little bit larger width for the input box so that you can see longer titles more easily. So, I'll go ahead and push this up too while we're here. So I'll stop my server, git add, git commit, added style sheets, and git push. Boop. There we go. Okay. So I remember instead of not equal in loops, there used to be an operator called different. Oh, like the 2 carets. Yeah, that makes sense. You wrote basic. Wow, that's really cool. That's awesome. Typing source code examples. Yeah, typing source code examples back in computer magazines when there was nothing to help you troubleshoot, right? It would just, oh, I didn't even save this. Gosh dang it. Keep doing that. All right, one more time. Okay, there, that'll do it. Okay, so there's the styling, not much there. Now that should get rid of this error when I restart my server. Start my server again. And that should get rid of that style sheet error that we saw. Server is running, we're connected to the database. Okay, now let's look at it again. Okay, so now we can see my title bar is much bigger. I'm gonna reload this. There we go, error is gone, that's good. No more error, perfect. Now let's see if we can type something in here and get anything back. So I'm going to type gone. Okay. So we're getting an error, but we can see that it's trying to hit the server, right? So it's passing in the query. Good. And results.map is not a function. Okay, so it doesn't like something, looks like within our, now, okay, let's practice troubleshooting here a little bit. Uncaught in promise, results.map is not a function. Now it's telling me where the problem is. So it's telling me that the problem is in main.js, so we can look there. And it's essentially just telling me the same thing over and over again. So we don't need to panic and say like, oh my gosh, we have a lot of errors. Really, we have one error and it's just throwing it over and over every time I type a new letter. So let's look and see if we can figure out what's wrong in our main.js. And Google is trying to help us here. So if we click this, see what it doesn't like. Make this bigger. What don't you like? Okay, so it doesn't like when we were trying to map our results. Fair enough. All right, let's look at that. Hey, Sirius, welcome. We're just doing a little troubleshooting here. Ah, all right, I'm missing, I have a typo here. I typed result instead of results. Oh, but no, that's factually fine because that's a parameter, so that's okay. So that's not a problem there. Then results and JSON there. Oh, serious, forgot the time. That's okay. You can always go back and watch the VOD. We've done quite a bit so far. Or stick around, doesn't matter. Okay, wait, fetch. I'm gonna go back to my code so I can actually see what's going on here. Boop, 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 boop. Function, autocomplete, async function, request response. Data await the fetch. Results.json. Oh, hang on. Results.map. Okay. The response from the backend is stored in the data variable. Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's a map error. Yeah. Yeah, the error is in the jQuery. That's what we're looking at right now. Yep. Just checking against my notes to see if I spot anything obvious. Probably a parenthesis or something somewhere. Results, map. First thing I always check is, you know, obvious stuff. Missing a parenthesis, spelling error, that kind of thing. Oh, cast doesn't have parentheses. Okay, let's see. No, the problem is actually going to be, okay, here's another good thing to point out. The problem is going to be within this first, I believe it's going to be within this first section up here somewhere. The only reason I believe that is because I hadn't selected anything yet. This won't fire until I actually select something from the list. So it hasn't run this fetch yet, so it's probably not going to throw an error. So that's why I'm thinking that the problem is up here somewhere. Yeah, so piece of shoot, that's interesting. It doesn't, I'm expecting this data to be an array. So maybe there's a problem actually on the server side. Maybe we didn't convert this to an array properly. Because yeah, it should be coming back as an array and be able to map it. So I'm not seeing any obvious syntax problems here. So I bet you're right, piece of shoot. I bet that it's not being passed into an array properly. So Yeah, with the double await. So this is actually this. I don't know much about jQuery, so I actually took this particular statement from a tutorial that I did. I agree. I feel like the syntax is not the best, but it does work. It does work. Driftwood, you might want to check your Atlas tier because you should be able to do search requests on the free Atlas tier. It should let you do that. I wonder, Driftwood, you said you've had your account for some time, right? You've had your Mongo account for a while. It could be that you're on some kind of like older tier. I don't know for sure though. Yeah, it'll definitely let you do it. Okay, let's look at our server and see if see what we're getting back. See, we're getting it from, so it'll be in this app.get on the search, and we should be converting this. Sorry, piece of shoot. We should be actually converting the results to an array, and then sending that result back as a response. But let me double check. So to array, response, send results. Fine. Let results equal. Could try a console log on this and see what we get back. When in doubt, console log it. So now as I'm typing, theoretically, that will console log something for me. So let's try that. We'll see if it's, and that'll tell us whether the response we're getting back is just not valid, or whether we're not getting any, like whether our search isn't working properly, and this may give us some more insight on what's going on. So, all right. So as I'm typing, load this. Oops. All right, let's see if I'm getting anything in the console here. Nothing there and no error. Okay. Doesn't like this URL either. Also log results. Yeah, maybe I should do it in main.js, yeah. Yeah, and we can also navigate to the URL as well. Let's see, response data. Now, can I console log it here? Console log response. Do I have to do it above? Okay, well, we've got it in both places now. We can click on the failed URL as well. Yep. So, yeah, it does. It does throw out results.map. That's what we're trying to figure out why it's doing that, because it should be getting back the results as an array, right? We should be getting it back as an array, and then, but for some reason the map is failing, so it's not getting back an array. Okay. Yeah. Why are you using question mark? What, I don't, where's the question mark? Oh, this? Yeah, this URL is, this is just a standard URL, like, delimiter of some kind. So the URL does work. This is a standard delimiter for URLs. Good question though. Let's see. So search query. I wonder if I can search this directly. I saved it. I'm gonna saved it. I'm going to go ahead and reload and see if we keep getting errors. We will. Okay. Results.map is not a function. Now let's see if I got any errors in the console. Still no errors there either. Okay. So currently trying to figure out whether the problem is on the server side or on the, I think it's on the server side somewhere. So here's the console. Not giving me anything so far. Response. Yeah, so it's hitting the catch. Okay, yeah. So it's hitting the catch, which is right here. So it's not getting the result that it expects. Console log inside catch. Okay, we can do that. We can try that. Console log everything, everywhere, everything. There we go. Restart my server. Yeah, that's right, because it's hitting the catch, so it's not getting a response back. So that makes sense. Go. Yeah, server. I think so, but all right, let's look at, do this again. Reload. Okay, so it's hitting the catch, so we got internal server error 500. Yep. And I think, okay, it's probably doing that results.map because it's hitting the catch, so it's not getting a result that it expects. So it can't map the result because there's nothing to map. So, yes. Reference error. Okay. Result is not defined. Oh, I think it needs to be set results. Okay. We set this variable of results. It's awaiting that. Oh, console log the error. Okay. Sure. Oops. Node server, JS. Gotta wait for it to connect. I think it's connected. I should really have both windows open. Woo! All right. That's better. Oh, I got that. Okay. Search is not allowed in this atlas tier. Why does my previous version of this app from earlier today work perfectly fine, whereas now I'm getting search not allowed? Driftwood, see? I swear we did. Look right here. This version of the app works perfectly. Literally in another tab, but whatever. All right. So somebody was saying go to network. Okay. Yeah, there's the message. Server hug of death. Okay, this is weird. Search is not, okay, well, that's fine. When in doubt, search the message. The Googles. Right, search is not allowed. These do not support free MO. These do not support server-side JavaScript. Yes, they do. I've been writing server-side JavaScript since this morning on it. I'm going to do a search. Now the piece of shit, the app works. Like, I wrote the whole thing this morning and I demonstrated it. I'm probably still can demonstrate it. That's what I'm so confused about. Like, it does work. Spy Kids. There. So, I mean, it does work. So I don't know why it's not letting me just do the same thing, but again. Yeah, I'm using Atlas. Well, this is part of troubleshooting, right? You just click around until you figure out the answer. Limit on the number of indexes. I only have one index. I used the same index that I did before. So if we go back and actually look at my database, and connect in the collections, I go to the sample mflix and movies. I only have the one index. That's the index that I'm hitting. Oh wait, is it a capitalization problem? Oh my gosh, it is. Rascal. Rascal, you rascal. All right. If it's that simple, I'm gonna be mad. Not at you, Rascal, just, at myself. Yeah. So in my notes, it is actually, in my notes, Driftwood, it is actually lowercase. So the version that works that I wrote earlier today, yeah, it's lowercase. Whoops. I may have just got like to the extreme. Let's save it. Let's see. All right, hang on. Node server.js. Oh my gosh. Let's try it. There may be other errors. This may not be the only one. But did everybody see what I did there? In my server.js file, I had to do this lowercase search. So let's see. All right, it's connected. Go back to the app. Reload. Ha! Oh gosh, that's amazing. Searching. Oh boy. First try. But I feel like this is a good teachable moment, right? A lot of the times your problems are going to be something super simple. And so that's why, it's important to be patient, manage frustrations, right? Because I could have just been like, screw it. I hate this, I'm done. It's all wrong. But in the end, it was a super simple thing to fix. So, and we're able to fix it. All right, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. So we can search. So I'm going to do Gone with the Wind. All right, so we got another error here. That's okay. Oh, this is great. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Unrecognized expression, Barbara O'Neill. It doesn't recognize Barbara O'Neill because I wonder if that's because her name has a thingy in it. Single quote. Or a pick. Yeah. Let's try something else. Let's try star. Let's try this. Star is Born. Okay. So that worked. But we can see in the console, so it's giving us back some data here. It also gave us back the object ID. So it's close, but we're not quite there yet. We got back the poster, so that's great. We don't quite have our cast list yet, but it is bringing back something. Yeah, I need to do an escape character, or just use double quotes. I think I just use single quotes in my. So now we have our connection. We're able to talk to our server. Our server is able to talk to the database, and it's able to bring back the objects that we want. So now we just need to refine it and finish it out. So I think we almost got this. We've almost got it. Okay. Let me go back to. I'm gonna look at my. I want to look at my jQuery here and see how am I. I'm appending the cast. In the cast. Oh, and I bet in my HTML I bet I didn't tag this as cast. Oh no, I did. Okay. So you had no errors, but now nothing drops down. Okay. Well, that's good. And we can see. Look now. Look what it's trying to log literally everything. So I need to turn off that console log because now it's working and it's logging literally every result. So I need to turn that off as well. We'll turn off these console logs here. And looking to see how I'm appending this. I wonder how, if, for example, thinking about that Gone with the Wind, the lady with the tick in her name, or the single quote in her name. I wonder how would I, does anybody know how I would escape that? I'm legitimately asking. I don't know the answer. How would I escape that within it, inside of a template literal like this? It's coming back as a string, but she already has a single quote in her name. I wonder how I would escape that and make it show up properly. But yes, but I mean, I know that that's the escape character, but it's inside of her name though, right? Would I have to use would I have to parse it with regex and like do a replace there? But okay, so let's go ahead and take a break, and we've almost got this, right? We've almost got it. We're getting responses back from the server. So let's do, Star. I want to do like Star Wars. Star Wars. There we go. Let's do episode 4 and see what we get. Okay, so no poster there. I know that Star Wars episode 3 has a poster. Not all of these have posters. I think Revenge of the Sith does. There we go. So the poster came back there. And this error was from the previous query. So that came back properly. It's still not appending to the list properly, but let's see if we can fix that next. When we get back from the break, we can figure out what's going on with the lists and get that to print out properly. And then we can maybe play around with sanitizing the names of people that come back that might have special characters in them. Yeah. So not all of them will have posters, and you can always double check in MongoDB. You can search for it there. Yeah, I'll go ahead and push. Yeah, good reminder. All right, and I'm also going to turn. Before I do that, I'm going to turn off my console log here because it's console logging a bunch of stuff. All right, we'll do that. Save. And go ahead and push. Ooh. All right. Kill my server here. Git add. Git commit. We've almost got it. We're right on the cusp of it. Fixed search issue. All right, and git push. There you go. And again, I'll link to the repository. Oops. So anybody can grab the code if they would like to. We're so close. So close. All right, that's a direct link to the repo. Will take 5 minutes. Feel free to, troubleshoot your own stuff. And then when we come back, we'll fix the last little problem where it's not appending to the list, and potentially see if we can get those names of special characters to come through properly. Lines 5 and 6. Let's see what that is. Uh, oh, those I didn't put. You talking about these two? Those put themselves in there. I actually didn't add those. Those added themselves. Yeah, I don't know exactly what added those, but I actually didn't add those. Okay, 5 minutes. And set this. And I'll see you back here shortly. Just the last little bit of troubleshooting, then we got it. Yeah, it's a VS Code. I'm pretty sure it's a VS Code auto import, which is importing things that we don't need. So, yay, VS Code. Thank you. EO Kolani, double check against my GitHub code during the break and see if you might spot what could be happening there. Yeah, just double check your files and see if they line up. I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, folks, we got about a minute left in the break. So come on back and finish this thing out. So you can help me find my my other typo. Go ahead and stop the timer. And we're on the home stretch. So we've got our it's able to bring back I need to, there we go. So it's able to bring back, oh, not anymore apparently. Oh wait, I didn't restart my server. I didn't restart the server. Hang on. I pushed and then I didn't restart it. So it's gonna refuse the connection if you don't have your server running. That'll do it. Node, server, yes. Here we go, server is running. Give it a second to connect to the database. Where was the typo? It was in the search. It was in server.js. And it was right here on line 30. So originally I had a capital S in search and it needed to be a lowercase s. So something as simple as that caused all that hassle. Yeah, so it needed to be, I had it as a capital S, it needed to be lowercase, and that was the problem. That's okay. We got it fixed, and now it's mostly working. We just need to fix the thing where it's not appending to the list properly. So let's reload this. We'll do, let's do Gone Girl. So it's able to bring back the poster, and we're not getting any errors. Yeah, so Nene, go to your, so that was the same error that we were getting before. Go to your search and go to your, your server.js and change the uppercase S to a lowercase s. Okay? All right, so let's figure out why it's not appending to the list. That's probably something very simple. Oh, sorry, my dog is trying to get into the room. I don't know if you can hear that. He's banging on the door. Okay, let's figure out what's wrong with the list. And first I'm going to double check that my HTML is correct. Apply to him to knock. Yeah, Ross, so we do use NodeMon quite a bit. In this case, we didn't just be, I just didn't. But yeah, we definitely have used NodeMon in the past. I didn't think I'd be restarting my server so many times on this one, but that shows, what little I know. But yeah, you're welcome to use NodeMon. It's a great tool for development. Yeah, we do definitely use it quite a bit. Okay, I'm double checking. Let's see, title. Got my label, got my input, got my unordered list. So that looks like it's working. And so now I'm going to check my main.js. I probably have an error in my jQuery here. So we got back, so this part right here where we're attaching the source attribute to we're attaching the poster to the image tag. So that's working. And so what that tells us is that it is able to grab the data that's coming back from the server, and it is able to grab like the poster URL. So that means we're getting something valid coming back to us. So that's a good start. And oh, I got it. I figured it out. Did anybody spot it? There's a problem somewhere right in here. Can anybody spot what's wrong? I spotted it, but see if anybody else can see it. So we by process of elimination, we saw that this part is working. So that means that this whole thing is, this right here, this is all working. Did anybody see what might be wrong? Nene, after you changed it, did you restart your server? Yeah, so did you probably, Nene, you probably changed that search from uppercase to lowercase and then saved it, but did you actually restart the server after you did that? Because otherwise, if you don't, it'll just throw the same error again. Yes, Rascal got it. Yep. So the problem was, this is actually the name of the item that we're targeting. So I need this to be in quotes and have the hashtag symbol there. Now I can actually target the specific location. Oh, I'm sorry, AO. If you did, I apologize because I didn't see your message. Yeah, my apologies. If you spotted that earlier, AO, and I didn't see it, I'm sorry. That's on me. But yes, that was the problem. So good eye. All right, so now this should append the list items as we expect it to. So let's try it out. All right, and we don't have to restart the server because we didn't change anything in server.js. We just changed our local file. So let's try again. We'll reload the page. And we'll do Gone Girl again. Hey, there we go. We got cast. We got a cast list. Nice. Okay, so now that I've made that fix, I'm going to do another push for you all. All right, we'll do this. We'll push this. Again, exclamation point GitHub if you want the link to my GitHub. Git commit fixed list append error. Well, issue. Didn't actually error out. All right, now I'm curious. I want to try something else once I commit this. Okay, so that's pushed up, so everything should be up to date. And Rascal just posted the direct link to the repo there. So you can check the code if you'd like. Now I'm going to try something else here. I'm going to reload this. I'm going to try Gone with the Wind again. Ooh. Oh, I forgot to restart the server again. That's why, yeah, I should have been using NodeMon. I didn't, yeah. Should have done that. NodeMon is your friend in this type of situation. But instead, we're going to do it live. Do it manually. Okay, now let's reload again. There we go. Gone with the Wind. Hey, okay, so now it works. So the reason we got that error before on the Barbara O'Neill is that it was trying to do something completely different. It was trying to like cast or something like that. And so now it works just fine. We don't need to have any special considerations for the special characters because they're all coming back as strings. So it's all good. Yeah, so now the app seems to be doing exactly what we would like it to do. And if we try this out, we can see that as I type, if I type more slowly, it updates. I don't know what I'm typing. It updates, but it's very fuzzy about it, right? So I type the words gone to. So the first result is very valid. It's gone to Earth. But everything else, since it couldn't really find anything else that contained these two words exactly, it's starting to get fuzzy about it. It's looking for maybe just one of the words or, just the word to instead, because it can't find anything with gone and to. So it's like, all right, gone to. So just look for the word to. Or maybe, well, mostly the word to. That's very common. Gone. Let's just go back to gone. I'm going to think of a more complicated word. Do like the word grape. So we've got like stuff like the grapes of wrath, right? But it's also looking for things like the word grass because it allows us, because we're allowing it to substitute two characters out if it would like to. So in this case, it's saying, all right, I'm going to get rid of the P and the E, and I'm going to substitute that with 2 S's to get grass, or the word grand, right? Again, 2 characters, that's the leeway that we gave it. We said you can edit out 2 characters, so instead it can look for the word grand, or grande. Yeah, I believe you can limit to the top 10. I think if you look at the if you look at the documentation for Mongo, or actually maybe that would be, I wonder if that would be inside of the, look at something. Yeah, no, I think that might actually be within like the search, like in your server.js file. I bet you could, I'm sure you could limit the count of the results. Yeah. And maybe refine it a little bit so it's not so, not quite as fuzzy as it is here. Free. But yeah, there's a bunch of settings you can tweak here. And the MongoDB has some good documentation on that. Kind of like what Driftwood shared earlier. I think if we go to so you can look in the MongoDB manual and look at, like, we don't necessarily want legacy text search, but you can look at like defining search indexes, how you can define different types of search indexes, and then also probably the one you want is running Atlas search queries. No, there's a better one. I'm going to try to find, where's that tutorial? Oh, here we go. Yeah, here are the various tutorials. And I'll share this link. I think this may have been what Driftwood shared earlier, but there we go. So that's a really great place to start. There's a bunch of tutorials on how to do various types of searches, depending on what you want to do, from the MongoDB documentation. So feel free to take a look at that. I referenced that when I was building this. And spend another 15 minutes troubleshooting. How do we get the list items to show? Yeah, oops, sorry. So in that case, the problem was right here. So in your main.js file, on line 25, I originally had the word cast with no quotes around it. Instead, it needs to be actually referencing a specific ID. So it needs to have the quotes and it needs to have the little hashtag symbol. And that's what fixed the list items not loading in. Hope that helps, Jay. Oh, Rascal, thanks for taking a look at Driftwood's code there. So now that this is actually working, now that this is actually working properly, I do want to go kind of rewind a little bit back to the beginning for folks that may have joined a little bit later and just quickly go over what we did to configure our MongoDB to be ready for this type of a query, essentially. So do one more thing here. I'm curious what Grass, a Nation's Battle for Life is. No idea what that is. Okay. But yeah, so this seems to be working properly. We can see that we're getting our objects logged in the console here. So let's kind of just rewind a little bit and go back to the beginning and quickly review what we did in order to get this working. So inside of, and this is like, I can't push this to GitHub, right? So this is the stuff that we did sort of preliminarily before we touched any code in order to get our MongoDB collection configured to allow us to search it in this way. So the first thing we did was we loaded in some sample data sets. And so in order to do that, I logged into MongoDB and I went to my cluster. So whatever your cluster is, if you're on the free tier, it should be cluster 0, right? We went here to cluster 0. I clicked on the 3 dots. I said load sample data set. What this does is it loads in a big, like a bunch of different sample data sets for you. It's really nice. That way you have a bunch of data you can query against. You can, build apps and practice a little bit without having to put in a bunch of data yourself. And so that takes several minutes to complete. So we loaded in our sample data set. And once that was done, I went to Browse Collections and looked at my available data. And in this case, I decided to use the movie database. And I went inside the sample mflix, which is the movie database, and I clicked on movies. And this is the database that we decided to use. It's got all the data that we're later pulling into the DOM. And the objects are pretty complicated, but we're only going to be using a couple of those fields. And so when I have a large, complicated database, the best thing for me to do in order to make it more quickly searchable, especially in the case when we're actively typing against it, right? I want to put an index on a specific field. And what an index allows us to do is it basically tells the database to, like an index in a book, it makes the database go through each of the fields that we're deciding to index. In this case, it's going to be title. And it says, hey, database, make a note of exactly where all the data associated with each title is located. So in the case of this, we're putting an index against title and we're saying, database, we're going to be searching on this later. So just know where all this stuff is, Know where all this stuff is so you can grab it more quickly, just like an index in a book, which allows us to find data more quickly rather than having to look through the entire book for a specific word. Instead, we know exactly what page it's on. And so that's why we add an index to a database, so we can find it more quickly. So what we did is we went inside of the movie collection, inside of the sample mflix database, and we clicked on search indexes. And we clicked on create index. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can use the visual editor, or in this case, we just use the JSON editor. And we deleted everything that was in there. And we pasted in, and actually I should have pushed this up to GitHub as well. I wonder, let's see, I could put that in there as a comment inside of the server.js file. So yeah, I'll have it. But for now, I'll just paste it in. Oh, you added in search limits? That's awesome, Snarfin. Yeah, I figured there's a way you could do it. So inside of our index, we put in this code. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying, hey, create an index on specific fields. And in this case, it's going to be on the title field. So for each title in our database, do some stuff to it. We don't have to be too concerned about what this is. In this case, the main thing we want to be concerned with is that the type of search it's expecting is an autocomplete. So index it and have it be ready for autocomplete style searches. Driftwood, are you asking me? Yeah, I can show you. I can check something for you. So once you've put this in, and I can, for now, I'll just put it in a comment inside of the server.js file. Do that real quick for those of you who are just tuning in. So inside of server.js, I'll just paste this in as a comment. In there. Am I missing a closing bracket? Maybe. Yes, I am. Whoops. Try that again. Go. Okay, comment it out. Go. Save. So y'all will have it. All right. There we go. So anybody just tuning in who wants to add an index, you can just go into server.js and grab that and obviously uncomment it and paste it into the index field. That should be valid now. And once you do that, you can just click next and build the index, and that will be ready. And then after you do that, your database will be ready for autocomplete searches. Okay, Driftwood, you want me to go to the cluster? Sure. Okay, what do you want to see, Driftwood? Oh, you want to see the index, okay. Movies, index, there you go, that's the settings for the index. Yeah, I think your settings are okay there, Driftwood. And it's not giving you back anything at all, Driftwood? It's not giving you back like any results. And if you try to console log, does it give you back? Can you get anything? Like if you put in some console logs throughout your code, can you get anything logged to the console at any point? I mean, that would be the thing that I would try, is to see if you can get anything logged to the console. Even if it's not writing to the DOM, if you can get it in the console, that's a good place to start. That's how, when I'm, not getting results back at all, like I just start putting console logs everywhere and see, do I get anything written like within VS Code? Can I get anything in the console there? Can I get anything in the console in the browser? What can I get? Yeah, and also that's a good point. Your index, should, let me see if I can edit it. Yeah, so this is what mine looks like. Make sure that you're indexing the title field specifically. Make sure that that's what you're indexing. Twisted Tech, did you change? One of the errors that we caught was when we got that results map is not a function. One of the things that we had to change was in your server.js file, look at your search and make sure that you have a lowercase s in the word search. So when you're actually doing the search in your server.js, make sure that you are, make sure that that's a lowercase s, not an uppercase s, because that makes a difference. Twisted Tech, make sure that when you get the results back, make sure that you're mapping them to an array. So when at the end of your search results, make sure that you have to array, because if it's trying to do it against an object, then it's not going to work. I mean, that would be the other thing I might check. But Driftwood, double check this. And make sure that your index is on the word title. That could be the other thing I could think of. So in the case of this project, there's a lot of things that could go wrong, right? We have a lot of moving pieces here. But that's how real projects work, right? You're usually not going to have just like one thing. You're usually going to have multiple systems that are trying to talk to each other. So this is good practice for real life, unfortunately. So yeah, we can just spend a little bit more time here just kind of troubleshooting around. Yeah, the most probably the easiest thing to oh, did you figure it out, Driftwood? Yeah. Yeah. You got it. Nice. Yeah, that should fix it. Well, you have to, when you rebuild the index, remember it takes a minute to rebuild. So give it a minute to like re-index everything before you try again. It might not work right away if you try too quickly. So give it like a minute or two. What do we what do oh I think so. So Driftwood, go to my GitHub, go to the server.js file and look at look at the you can if you're not sure if it's right, just look at what's in server.js at the bottom. I literally put the index in there and commented it out so you can compare it directly without me having to keep going back to it here on the screen. Yeah. Thanks, Alice Tellos. Hey Obama, you say you have exactly the same code, but are you? I'm going to need a little bit more in order to help you. Are you getting errors in the Are you getting errors in the console? Like, what are you? What are you getting? Another thing that's really helpful when you're troubleshooting is the more information you can provide, the better the troubleshooting goes. You might need to give it more time, Driftwood. It may not be done. Double check your index and check the index that you have. File not found. I think I've seen that error before. Are there any other errors that you're getting, or just that one? Driftwood, is it still not working? Or I'm like juggling people now. Oh, 404, not localhost 8004. Is your AO, is your server running AO? Oh, thanks, Raina. I'm glad you had fun. Yeah, it sounds like your server's not running. Is it running on port 8000? Or did you choose a different port? Yeah, and Driftwood, you can check and see what your index looks like if it's done by just going to the index list and seeing what the status is. So just go here and check the status and see if it's first check the index field, right? Make sure that it's on title, and then check the status. And if this is green, then you should be able to go. I'm gonna try this again with one of the other samples. Yeah, you can do it on the same cluster. Yeah. You just need to change like the connection information and stuff. Make sure that you change, the database and the collection that you're connecting to. But no, you don't need to re-download them. Yeah, they're totally separate databases, so you can definitely try it on a different one. Yep, exactly. Piece of shoot. You can do it on the same cluster. Just change the change the database name and the collection name if you're using a different database, right? Because remember, when we talk about how the hierarchy of this, we're all, you can stay on the same cluster, which is your cluster 0, but then within that cluster, you now have these multiple sample databases that you can use. And so you'll need to change the database name and the collection name, which is this, right? Database collection. Those are the two things that, yeah, exactly, Snarfin. Yeah, this is what the kind of thing we need to get used to. Yes, DHCZ, you can definitely also use a public folder as well. Yep. You would have to you would have to enable that middleware too, though, right? You'd have to also do use public. I think. How you doing, Driftwood? It should be, the index should be done by now. And if you're, if y'all are still stuck, sometimes, troubleshooting isn't an immediate thing. Part of it is being patient, right? And so sometimes you'll be like, just go and do something else for a little while, and then you come back and you spot the problem right away. And that's happened to me more than once as well. So sometimes you're just like, I just need to walk away for 20 minutes, go eat some dinner, and then come back and you sit down and you're like, I'm a dingus. And that can do it as well. So Driftwood, did you get it? Okay, well, maybe, troubleshoot a little bit more. See if you're getting, like I say, add console logs wherever you can. And add as many console logs as you can. See if you can get anything to write to the console. Showers do it for you. Yeah, exactly. Keep looking into it, and hit me up later if you still can't get it by like tomorrow or so. And try walking away, try coming back, look at my code on the GitHub, see if you can spot any differences, many missing parentheses, missing brackets, missing quotation marks. All those things can throw you off the rails. Can we search by category or genre? Well, let's see if that's an available field. We would need to index it, right? Let's see what we have here. Genre. Well, so genre is an array, so I wonder. Category, is category? Doesn't look like category is a field, but genre is. Science fiction would be fun to find. Yeah, it would. It would. I bet you. I imagine you probably can index by genre. It might take slightly more different configuration just because it's an array. That would be something to maybe look at the MongoDB documentation for, to see how you could potentially do that. Hey, Seaplane, we are building tonight. We're actually done now. We're just doing a little bit of a conversation afterward. We're using MongoDB to practice doing autocomplete searches. So, for example, our app here allows us to type and dynamically search a MongoDB database with movie titles and deliver back to us, maybe. Oh, sorry, I don't have my server running. I turned off my server. Hang on. Let me start it up again. I keep doing that. Whenever I push stuff to GitHub, I have to turn off the server. Could do it in a separate command line, but I'm too lazy. All right, we're connected to the database now. Now it'll work. All right. So yeah, we're doing something that will allow us to autocomplete and do autocomplete queries against the database to return back results while we type. Yeah. There we go. Oh, good, Akai Bear. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and set up. We'll set up a raid. Driftwood. Let me check one thing for you here. To array. Yeah, so really check the search. So against my GitHub code, thoroughly check and make sure that your search is written correctly, because it's really easy to make a typo in that search query. But yeah, just double check against my GitHub code, check everything in that search object and make sure that it's all formatted properly, because it looks like it's working, it's just not bringing back anything from the search, right? So double check that and make sure that you don't have any typos in there. That would be my suggestion. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's find somebody that we could possibly raid. So obviously, if anybody has any suggestions, you're welcome to share them. I'm going to set up the raid. 2 seconds. Thanks, Twisted. All right, let's find someone to raid. Any suggestions? I only see one person online that I'm following. We've got CM Griffing. Does anybody else have any suggestions? Otherwise, we'll just raid CM Griffing. No problem, Elos Talos. All right, CM Griffing, here we come. Yeah, serious. I actually do have. That's what I was with the colors. That's what I'm wondering about. Like, I thought they looked a little blown out to me too, but I do have HDR enabled on my monitor. Is that like a known problem with OBS? Because yeah, HDR. I do have HDR on my monitor. So before we rate, I need an answer from Sirius. Because yeah, or feel HDR is an issue. Okay, I'll try disabling HDR next time. Yeah, because I was wondering about that. Looks fine on my screen, but okay. All right, I'll disable it next time. Thank you for that, Sirius. Okay, raid is going. Start the raid. And I will see you all again on Wednesday. And here we go.